It's that time of the week. Yes, this week's Cult Movie Show, your weekly look at cult movies. Please welcome your hosts, Warren and Velvet.
Yes, we are back with podcast 48 of the Cult Movie Show. I am, of course, Warren, and with me, as always, is Velvet. How are you going today, Velvet?
Oh my God, I'm more fantastic than usual. So not only are we having the most awesome discussion on some iconic post-apocalyptic cult films tonight, it's almost like a family reunion tonight because we're back to where we started, at least for me. We've got Garry back on the podcast with us, and even Dr. Zaius is going to make a guest appearance via Planet of the Apes.
Hey, well done. Yes, the old Zaius report, yes. For old-time listeners, we'll get that joke. So how are you, Garry?
I'm doing fine. You made me jump out my skin when you suddenly came on with, I was just putting my Blu-ray of Psycho on. I was like, all calm. And then suddenly...
We just like to wake everybody up. That's all, you know.
I love it.
But welcome back on. It's been a while, and of course, everyone will remember going back. It'd be about a year ago now, would it?
Yeah, crazy.
Yes, that Garry was a regular member back in the days when the show was called the Zaius Report. It wasn't even called the Cult Movie Show, so that's how far back it was.
I feel like I'm a sort of a cameo on a reboot. I'm on a remake.
There you go. Just saying that. I watched Baywatch the other night.
Oh, how did you like that?
Big enough to watch. Yeah, even though I love Zac Efron and Baywatch.
Well, there's a lot of penis in it. I like penis, so if you like penis, you might like this movie. Might.
It's I love Dwayne Johnson. I think he's fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's got a couple of cameos in it, which were good. It's very funny. It does. I don't know how much it really plays homage to the original show, but when it is doing taking the piss out of Baywatch, it is doing it from the heart. It's not actually saying
sort of the same way the Brady Bunch movie did the Brady Bunch, because that was very well done. That was.
Yeah, I would describe it much more.
I mean, you know me, Warren. I'm a Baywatch purist. I'm nervous about watching this film, even though I want to see it so badly.
I know. It's my only one real complaint about the movie is where were all the cameos? There were so many, the amount of people that, did their turn in Baywatch, and where were they all? That was my only...
That's a good question. I don't know if people just didn't want to do it, or if they didn't have enough in the budget to get them to come on to do the cameos. I mean, I don't know either. I'm wondering about that, too.
Well,
from what I know from a Baywatch fan insider... that I am, because I'm sad. I love Baywatch. Pamela Anderson was life. Get in.
Yes.
They did ask a lot of them, but they politely declined.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, there's nothing you can do. You can't force people to cameo, unfortunately.
No. But Gina G. Nolan was in Sharknado 4, but she wasn't in Baywatch. I don't know. Considering
there seems to be a bit of a love-hate relationship between the Baywatch cast and the show itself, because
it sounds like
it's considered trash and a flop, but also a success at the same time. And it all depends how you view it.
Yes, I would say to people, if you enjoyed I'd say it's a good film. I'd still give it a thumbs up.
So if I put it on tonight and I despise it, I can come and attack you.
Yes. But
as long as there is constant Zac Efron nipple action going on, I am.
Oh my God! You know what? I don't do this often, but I'm not going to fucking lie. When there's a scene of Zac Efron doing like a fitness test to get approved as a bodyguard, or not bodyguard, lifeguard. See, I don't even know what the fucking movie's about. I was just there to see naked men. There's a scene where Zac Efron's basically doing a fitness test, and I think I actually gasped when I saw him. I think I actually went,
he's my biggest crush in the world.
Yeah. If you want to see him,
I had to suffer Dirty Grandpa recently. I didn't laugh once. I felt terrible. I love him. I want to find it. I don't like you.
You will love it when he actually does the, what do you call it, the training course. you will.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
I'm calling it the fitness test.
Old fitness test, whatever. Yeah, it's.
Am I going to have to watch it with the sound down like when you were a kid? You used to watch Cinemax. It's like
yes, it will be. It'll be a bit like watching Cinemax. Yes.
No, he is the fittest. I think he's literally probably the fittest he's ever been in this movie in Baywatch. I mean, he really hit the gym for this movie, and I'm just like, whoa. Yeah. I was like, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyway, we're not talking about Baywatch. Anyway,
I was enjoying
that. But we are going to talk about obviously a couple of films this podcast, but we're going to have a bit of a theme, with the exception of our mini movie. That's going to be a bit lighthearted. We're talking about post-apocalyptic movies which are set after the world has ended, if you like, or life as we know it has sort of ended. Not movies that lead up to it. So we're not going to classify things like World War Z or, movies.
Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah. Yes. It's going to be the movies which are basically set post the event, so we don't actually see the event. So
for you millennials listening, that's after the event.
Yes. So basically, yes, after the bombs have dropped or whatever, what the world is like 20 years later or 30 years later or 300 or 3,000 years later.
Right.
So these are sort of the films we're going to talk about. So we sort of thought we might break them down into a few different groups, although we probably won't talk about them in order because we never get stuff right on this show, so we'll just be a bit all over the place.
And I'm completely oblivious because I turned up 5 minutes ago.
Yes, but don't worry, you'll be fine.
No strict organization, no strict categorization, no strict organization. It's all good.
But the thing is that I suppose these sorts of movies fall into 4 different groups. I think that's what we were sort of saying, wasn't it, Velvet?
Yeah, definitely. So, there's post-nuclear, after the bomb's been dropped. There's post-biological, for example, some kind of virus or epidemic, or even the zombie thing. And then post-environmental disaster, polar ice caps melting, greenhouse effect. There we go.
Yes.
World gets really hot, world gets really cold, that kind of stuff, just like disasters. And then the what the fuck category. We don't know why the world's fucked up, but it is, and it's a post-apocalyptic society. We don't know what happened to these people. We don't know if there was a bomb, if there was a zombie virus, or if it just got really hot one day.
Yes.
You're going to hate me, but I've immediately thought of a movie that doesn't fall into any of those categories.
Okay.
Let's get started. Well, let's get started then.
Yeah, let's start with that one. Let's start with that one.
Yeah.
Terminator Salvation.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes.
It's robots, so it's not like a nuclear war. It's sort of a tech war, isn't it? I suppose it's sort of like Apple versus Microsoft.
Okay, that's a good one. Okay, what about the post-apocalyptic societies where humans are afraid of AI, artificial intelligence, because it's become sentient and it's taken control of humans' lives? So there you go. That's a whole other category.
Yeah, there we go. We got 5 now.
Oh yeah. Well, actually,
Yeah.
I just thought there's a 6th. What about post-alien invasion?
Oh, good one.
Like District 9, for example.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Where we're learning to live with these aliens and treating them like illegal aliens.
I mean, how far-fetched that we just took them all in.
Pardon the pun, but...
I tend to have a feeling, though, that District 9 was actually telling a slightly different story. I don't think it was actually telling...
It's a social commentary film, really.
Yes.
Definitely.
I mean, it's the same as like Dawn of the Dead isn't just a zombie movie, it's just telling you about consumerism.
That's exactly right. But I suppose
the consumerism zombies.
But I
hang out at the mall when you die.
But the other thing that we could do as well is get everyone's opinion on whether the movie was maybe accurate. Well, not that we would exactly know, but the idea was it accurate?
How do we know?
I know. But the thing is that is there any science in the movie? Is there any science in it at all, or is it just ludicrous sort of thing? So anyway, well, you mentioned it first, Garry. So we've got in many ways what really ever since Terminator 3. All the Terminators, they vary a little bit, but we've got a post-apocalyptic world. The bombs have gone off.
After the war with the machines.
And so forth. So, I mean, does everybody... The problem is we can't I suppose even the original Terminator films, we still see a glimpse, into the future and so forth. So what does everyone think about all the Terminator stuff?
I don't think it's 100% realistic since it's a movie. No, but all joking aside, but the reliance on technology, and also they're already starting to develop these AIs that you've seen them have to shut the AIs down because one AI recently developed its own programming language that its creators could not read. So they had to shut the machine down because it had already created its own language. So it was able to communicate outside of human intervention. And then what was the other thing they did? That they set up a little AI, artificial intelligence, for social media, and it instantly became a genocide racist.
It became a racist force.
Sort of alt-right Nazi.
Yeah, I know. I know, that was hilarious.
It's just crazy. So, reliance on technology and that technology growing on its own and becoming something we never intended. I think that's very realistic. And that could eventually take the forms of robots, because look at stuff like all the little, we have all the little AIs in our phone, depending on what you have. Some people it's Siri, or if you have the little box called Alexa. That's how robots start. They start as these little boxes, then they're going to have wheels, then they're going to have legs, then they're going to have arms, then they're going to have a whole fucking robot body, and it's the apocalypse.
Yeah.
Another way of looking at it is that we could become the robots ourselves because of how much we rely on our own technology. If you go out there on a day-to-day basis, I defy you to find anyone who isn't looking at their phone whilst they're walking around or holding it in their hand. They are so reliant on it; they're addicted to it.
Yeah, absolutely
controls us.
That's very true. Could we become the next Cybermen? The next Daleks?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. They are already predicting that within 100 years, humans will begin to integrate technology into their bodies. And I fully believe that. I fully can totally see that.
Wasn't there where that workplace was putting chips in the back of people's necks so they could keep an eye on the workforce, which they totally stole from the X-Files.
Yes.
But even that's happening, and people are willingly going, "Oh yes, it's for a good cause. I'll do it." What?
Yeah.
What are you doing?
You're going to put put a chip in your body? So you can be tracked?
Yeah, a lot of people are doing this. A lot of people are using it for GPS technology, so that they're talking about microchipping their kids. So if kids get kidnapped or get lost, they can find their children, just like we do with our pets. But also, I think the first really acceptable form that'll gain the most mass traction on this, you can see I think about this shit a lot, is payment methods. People are going to stop carrying credit cards and debit cards. They're going to start scanning your thumbprint, and that's going to be it. Your thumbprint, or it's going to be a microchip that they scan in your wrist. It's going to be something like that. It's going to be embedded technology in your body, just so you can pump your gas, so you can buy your groceries, so you can pay your bills, so you can buy your fucking coffee at Starbucks. Okay, and that's my conspiracy for the day.
Facial recognition software in Snapchat.
Yeah.
Well, facial recognition software, we saw that only just the other week, after there was that, we won't go into it, but that, event that happened in, was it South Carolina, that people were actually using the photographs from the day and running it through facial recognition so they could identify the people who had been photographed, so they could out them on social media. So it's kind of amazing.
The technology in the Snapchat filters is the same technology the CIA used to create a database of people's faces.
Yeah.
And people are willingly doing it. They're just willingly doing it. It's not all just funny sort of dog faces and flowers in your hair. You're actually
exactly.
It's kind of amazing, but
creepy.
But my biggest problem, actually, where I think Terminator fails, is that you've got all these people living in this world fighting the machines, but there doesn't seem to be any radiation whatsoever, but every atomic bomb in the world has been let off.
Well, that's Wi-Fi, right. Isn't it?
It's all done via Wi-Fi. Find the router and disconnect it.
So that's my big complaint about the Terminator series. What happened to the radiation?
Imagine Skynet calling customer services. Excuse me, our internet's gone down. All of our war machines have died. How long is it going to replace it? I don't know. Give it another 20 minutes. Turn it off and on again.
But why do you even need the robots to go out and hunt the people? The radiation's going to kill them anyway.
Wow. Wow, I never realized that. Yeah, no, totally. Wow.
You know, so
Wi-Fi, the biggest plot hole in the Terminator series.
Anyway, dearie me. But all right. Well, what about something a bit different to? Well, actually, if we're talking about nuclear, let's just finish off with another nuclear one. And this is obviously a huge franchise, Mad Max.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, obviously,
Sorry.
now, obviously, the very, very first film is pre the apocalypse. It's 2, 3, and 4, which are obviously meant to be post-apocalypse. So we're really talking about 2, 3, and 4. So does everyone love the Mad Max movies?
Oh, I love the grittiness of it. I just love all the quirky characters they have. They have all these just crazy people. Oh my God, Lord Humongous, and then they have the guy running around with the assless chaps Prince style, and then you got like the little feral kid. It's just all these crazy weird ass characters. It just I can't help it. It makes me laugh when I watch it because it's just so weird.
I sort of like Mad Max, but I like what it inspired later on because it gave us barbed wire, and I will forever be grateful to the universe.
Ta-da!
Also, did you know, useless fact, that when Beyond Thunderdome was being filmed, just about 100 yards away in the same bit of desert, they were filming Priscilla, Queen of the Desert.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Now, one of Gary's favourite movies, I know, and I absolutely adore it. It's a brilliant film. If we're going off topic, but if you haven't seen Priscilla, check it out. It is a fantastic film. Really,
it's exactly what Australia is like. I don't let anybody tell you.
Yes. Drag queens in the desert, drag queens in the outback. It sums up Australia, doesn't it?
Another interesting fact about Priscilla, I'm sorry, but I've gone on a Priscilla tangent, but this is the last fact, I promise. The interesting fact about Priscilla is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert was chosen as the official film to cheer people up after 9/11.
Really?
It was shown
I've heard that.
It was shown worldwide.
I actually heard that. Yeah, I remember that, actually. Yeah, I remember them saying, hey, watch this movie, have a laugh. I remember that.
So officially, it does fall into post-apocalyptic if you count 9/11 as an apocalyptic event. Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is the savior.
Well, it's interesting.
And it is the anniversary of 9/11 this month, so I think I'll be watching Priscilla, Queen of the Desert that day.
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah,
the original schedules for what was meant to be on that night was the X-Files movie, which was about a bomb being hidden in a federal building.
Oh, God.
Die Hard was also scheduled to be on that night.
Oh, my God.
The Towering Inferno was also scheduled.
Oh, my God.
Oh, my God.
Oh, Jesus.
So bad timing.
But what you talked about, you know, like setting that movie to cheer people up. I remember the great story that in Australia after 9/11, the Australian rugby team was meant to tour Britain, and they cancelled the tour because they said, oh, no, we can't go. The world's too dangerous. We're going to stay at home. But guess who, the day after 9/11, booked tickets to fly to New York to entertain the kids for free? The Wiggles. No, the Wiggles.
Oh, I remember them.
So, yeah, but I always found it amazing.
We'd actually do an episode with the Wiggles if we want to link it all up together.
There you go. There you go.
She sang Monkey Man. It's sad that I know that and I even have it on my computer.
Oh, dearie me, dearie me. Well, all right, anyway, let's get back to where we were. We're getting
what were we on?
Mad Max to the Wiggles.
Mad Max. So, but anyway, I think we all like the Mad Max movies, though, don't we? My only complaint about the movies, because I don't have really any complaints about them, is that why the hell Mad Max is a story set in Australia? Why the hell in Mad Max 4 is it suddenly in fucking Africa?
I don't know.
I mean, what did he do? What did he do? Emigrate after the apocalypse?
I don't know.
See what happens is when that bomb hit, it just blew his ass over to.
With me, it ends with Tina Turner. The fourth one doesn't exist. Tina sort of bowed it out perfectly. I don't want to.
There you go.
It's a little bit like if you're a big Alien fan, you don't classify Alien versus Predator 1 and 2 in the actual movies. You sort of just rub them out.
If you're a diehard Alien fan, you don't count 3 or 4.
Well, I love them though. I love although 4, yeah, I suppose. I don't know. I love them all actually. I really enjoyed the latest one. Actually, I really enjoyed the latest one. But
are we sending any royalties to James Cameron after this? We've got Aliens, Terminator.
No, we're just trying to convince him to come on.
Piranha 2 is our next option.
Piranha 2, yes, that's a great film. All right, so do we have any other nuclear ones, guys, before we change into a different?
Let's see.
Creepazoids, the nuclear one.
Yeah.
Sorry, that title.
I know.
Sorry, just the title. We don't have to linger on this one.
Chat out in there, you see, it's the law.
We don't have to linger on this one long. I just want to throw it out there. The Postman with Kevin Costner, 1997. What I like about that one is how there's been a total breakdown of society, and they bring it back together by reestablishing the postal system to bring communication back. I thought that was cool. I like that. But, yeah, it's a goofy fucking movie. It's totally patriotic.
Again.
But I like the whole concept of people learning to communicate and traveling to deliver post. It's a cool concept. Although the movie's stupid, but I love the way they. I think
it was one of those movies where it sounded great on paper, didn't really translate all that well.
Exactly.
It's
all bad timing as well with the boom of email happening in '98.
Yes, I know. I know.
And then, of course, there's 1984, which I always thought this was interesting because this one's not post-nuclear so much, but it's basically post-war, that people have been brainwashed into believing there's this fake war, and that totally changes how people live, and they're constantly surveilled, and their lives are not their own anymore. It's interesting.
Yeah, I was going to give an honorary mention to 1984 because of the whole Big Brother. But
I was about to say, yes, it gave us the name, didn't it? It gave us the name.
Yeah, Big Brother is watching you.
Yeah.
Take a piss, take
and
a
it's
shit.
more prevalent today than it ever was.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I know. Yeah. I mean, you live in any big city and it's pretty impossible not to be on CCTV somewhere. You know, everybody should take Orwell seriously, but if I was a rabbit, I'd be shitting myself now. Watership Down is terrifying. You do not want that to happen. Yes. So
an Animal Farm, or depending on which version you see. If you watch the one which you pay Brazzers for, it's slightly different.
Yes.
Oh God, ew! Did you say Brazzers? Oh God.
Well, I do remember who was it that played LEG? Sacha Baron Cohen. And I do remember on the LEG show, he interviewed a whole heap of film critics, and they were talking about Animal Farm. And the film critics were actually talking about the George Orwell version. He was talking about a slightly different movie called Animal Farm.
No. Oh, God.
So, which made it a hilarious sketch.
Would put Jeff Stryker to shame. Yeah.
Oh, dear. Oh, dear. Oh, well, what about if we...
now Blu-ray yet? That's what I want to
say. Waiting for it on Blu-ray. Okay, so if we move into the biological... And, we should just say that there might be a couple of films that you're going to say, why didn't you mention them? You'll find out later in the show, because we're actually going to review them. So if we didn't mention them, that's probably a reason why.
I hope I don't mention them then, because if I do, I've completely ruined it.
No, you're fine.
We haven't as yet. We haven't as yet, so that's okay.
Then again, I've mentioned Piranha 2 and Creepazoids. The chances of me naming
No, you're fine. Just be yourself. Talk about whatever.
All right. So what if we move on to some biological ones? Because these are These are very, very common now. The biological ones are actually far bigger these days, I think, than the post-apocalyptic nuclear ones.
Damn you, Walking Dead.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, whether it be TV or whether it be movies. I mean, some of them. Well, we'll just name a whole heap and we can just start talking about them. I mean, things like, for instance, what is it? I Am Legend, The Resort, Omega Man, 28 Days Later.
Yes.
So let's just talk about a couple of them. Well, let's start with I Am Legend and we just sort of move through.
Okay.
I Am Legend, as I used to call it.
Legend. Now, it's probably pretty hard to talk about I Am Legend without mentioning Omega Man, because they are
I love the Omega Man.
Such similar films. And
Right.
what was the other one you mentioned before we were on air?
It's The Last Man on Earth with Vincent Price.
Vincent
They're all
Price.
Vincent Price.
Yeah.
Plus, there was also a Twilight Zone episode that was very similar as well.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
It was. Yeah,
Yes.
I remember that now.
So, what do we think of the post-apocalyptic sort of zombie genre? So,
I think it's overdone.
You think it's overdone?
I think it's overdone.
It is
It's
now.
so
I mean, like
popular.
being a horror nut. I mean, horror is my life. I am sick to death of seeing it. To be honest, it seems so unoriginal now. It's everywhere. It's like when Twilight came out and everything was vampires and they were all in romances. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Right.
Can we get past this, please?
Right. No, I still like the zombie genre, but I did get tired of it for a little bit, and that's usually what it is it's like it's such a virus or epidemic. It makes people sick. It makes them murderous, and it's highly infectious, and it almost wipes out the entire normal healthy
And this
human
phobia of
population.
saying zombie as well. They don't say that anymore. They say infected.
Yeah,
I know.
a lot of movies won't say zombie now. Like Walking Dead never says zombie. The TV show. Yeah, that's so true. Or they'll come up with all these slang words. They'll call them walkers. They'll call them the undead. Like they'll call them anything but zombie.
I mean, we've got to give an honorary shout out tonight to the Living Dead and the late George Romero, who.
Oh yes, yeah.
All the Romero zombie films, and I feel like his is still to this day is probably the only like post-apocalyptic zombie films that actually had a social message for the most part. There are a couple of exceptions, obviously, but for the most part,
Once
he's
we
talking
got
about
the survival
consumerism, he's
where
talking
they're
about
riding horses,
racism.
that got a bit much. But yeah, I mean, the first one was racism. The second one was consumerism. The second one was on warfare and how we fight.
Right. Yeah.
And
So I mean, that's
all about having the money, the rich and the poor divide, where the rich can look after themselves behind gates and walls. If you want to coin a popular political phrase right now.
Yes.
Right. Totally. Also, Resident Evil. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no! Keep going, Velvet. Keep going.
Yeah, I was just going to say Resident Evil. That's also one where it starts out as an experiment and then it spreads and almost wipes out the entire population. So now, either you're human or you're some kind of weird mutated monster that's going to turn you into a weird mutated monster.
And the best thing about Resident Evil is no matter what genre fan you are a fan of, you can find a Resident Evil film to match your criteria. There's a Western one, there's a futuristic one, there's a present day one.
That's so true.
Although I suppose we should give a special mention to, I think it was a New Zealand, it might be Australian, I'm not too sure, movie about the zombie sheep. It's a black sheep.
Black Sheep, one of the greatest Australian films ever made.
Now, I mean, zombie sheep. Zombie sheep. How you got it? That's pretty cool.
Before Black Sheep came out, I used to say to people they need to do a comedy film about sheep because sheep are hilarious in general. Just look at the sheep, they are hilarious. And then Black Sheep came out, and it was like the greatest thing ever to happen in the world.
Oh my goodness. Zombieland, that's another great post-apocalyptic film where zombies have taken over. But I also like that it's a road movie because, they're constantly traveling to different places, driving around, stopping off at amusement parks, finding abandoned food trucks, looking for Twinkies. I mean, it's fantastic.
And Bill Murray.
That had the same sort of social commentary as what the Night of the Living Dead films did as well, but it plays on the fact that we've all seen the movies. So you're sort of living in a world where the characters have watched the same movies you have.
Yes, exactly. Always double tap, that kind of stuff. Always make sure they're dead. Some people have seen this. Some people haven't. Stakeland from 2010. Right. That's a really cool one. Yeah, really cool one. You'll have to watch it more and get caught up with this.
That's another interesting post-apocalyptic one because that's sort of more vampire-related, isn't it? So it's sort of a vampire war.
Yeah, it's like a vampire epidemic, and so if you're a human, you're struggling to survive against this population of vampires. And
it's very, very bleak.
Very bleak, really gritty, but really fantastic movie. Great ending too. So I won't spoil the ending for people who want to see it.
It ruins the first.
Okay, I was wondering about the second one. Okay, I'm not going to watch it then.
It was made by Sci-Fi. That's all you need to know.
Oh, never mind.
Well, it's a little bit like when Snakes on a Plane was then redone by Sci-Fi as Snakes on a Train.
Snakes on a Train.
It didn't quite Yeah.
I mean, the thing with the Stayclan sequel is it does carry on the storyline of the teenage protagonist from the first film, but it takes away all the sort of dark grittiness that works as a one-off.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can
I'll
see
pass
what they
on that.
tried to do, and I appreciate them for trying, but yeah, it just needed to stop there. Once Daniel Harris, you don't bother.
I hate when they do that. You gotta know when to quit when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
Not everything needs a sequel. Not everything needs a sequel. Not everything needs a remake.
Well,
All right.
Well, what about, I mean, because I know one of your favourite movies of all time, Gary, is, of course, War of the Worlds. In fact, the whole concept of War of the Worlds. So, but wasn't there the War of the Worlds 2? Which
You're on about the Asylum one.
The Asylum movie, which was made after, War of the Worlds.
The event.
Yeah, after
I mean,
the event.
officially, it is a post-apocalyptic film.
Yes,
If we
that's
ignore
exactly
the
right.
sort of temporal time jumping from Mars to the Earth within seconds, and that scientist with the really bad accent, where it went Texan, then Australian, then Dutch, all in the same.
I know. Well, I just love it that when he goes off to the spaceship, and then the science, was it the two scientists or whatever, they're sitting back waiting for him, and it's like, oh, he's been gone 5 minutes now. I wonder if he's coming back. What should we do? I know. Let's get drunk.
I mean, being a War of the Worlds obsessive and collector I've loved every version of War of the Worlds, no matter how bad or cheesy it is. The first Asylum version of War of the Worlds was actually quite well done and did stick to the books. The only difference was they didn't have the tripods, but it was more accurate than Spielberg's was. Yeah. But that second one was just a joke.
Yes. It's got to be seen to be believed. Well, isn't it? It's a C. What's his name again? C.
Thomas Howell.
Yeah, C. Thomas Howell. That's right.
He is
Who does
terrible
actually
actor.
own the asylum.
He is so shitty in everything.
Did you know
I see
he's the
him
owner
in.
of the asylum?
Yes, so don't knock him.
No
Don't knock him.
wonder. Oh, that explains a lot. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
love C. Thomas Howell, but he's such a terrible fucking actor. It makes me laugh. The only thing he's ever been good in is The Hitchhiker, and when he plays that serial killer on Criminal Minds, when he plays the serial killer on that TV show. Everything else, like, I see him in.
Even
he's always
Bieber was
so
a good
bad.
actor on CSI. So it's not good.
Although wasn't he also in season 3 of Torchwood?
Mm-hmm.
He played the hitman in Torchwood.
Wow.
He was the
that's when Torchwood jumped the shark.
Yes.
Oh, no.
No, it was season 4. Sorry, it wasn't season 3. It was season 4
Yeah,
when they moved
Miracle
to
Day, wasn't it?
Yeah, when they moved to the United States, they actually take the show to the United States.
Okay, I haven't seen that season. That's why.
It would have worked really well as like a 3-parter, but unfortunately they did it out to 10.
See Thomas Howell.
Yeah. So
see Thomas Howell. No, but
Sharknado though. Without him, we wouldn't have had Sharknado.
That is true. This is very true. So I am a fan.
I'm not knocking the
fan.
guy. I'm not saying I don't like him. I just say he's a bad actor.
I like you. I
like lots of bad actors.
He doesn't. I like you. He doesn't like you.
But, okay. Well, what about 28 days later and 28 weeks later, the sequel? Does everyone sort of think that they're a fairly good look at what the world might be like if such an event happened?
Well, in England, yeah.
In England, yes. Obviously, there are British movies.
Good one. Well, you have to admit, though, 28 Days Later really reinvigorated the whole zombie craze because also they gave birth to the running zombies.
Yes.
They were no longer walking and lumbering. They were running, and you're like, oh, shit, they could actually catch you now.
That rigor mortis doesn't exist in the land of 28 days.
There is no. Well, it's a bit like, would we have had the zombie of World War Z if it hadn't have been for 28 days later?
I don't think we would have done. But then again, Romero did have running zombies in Land of the Dead, which came out around about the same time. 8 days later, so I don't know whether it would have naturally progressed or not. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Although I must admit, there is a great scene in the movie. What is it? Cockneys versus Zombies. Where I've forgotten the actor's name, but he's quite a famous British actor. But he's
Richard Pryor.
I
know exactly the bit you're on about.
when he's using the walking frame and he's out in the garden of the old people's home, and there's a zombie behind him, and they're going, "Run, quick, get away!"
Run,
but of
Hamish,
course,
there's a zombie zombie behind you.
But he can only. But the problem is, of course, the zombie's doing the slow walk, but he's on the Zimmer frame, the walking frame, so he can't go any faster. So you've got the slowest getaway chasing him in history.
They're both walking at exactly the same speed as each other.
I need to watch this. I haven't seen it. I need to watch Coffee versus Zombies.
It's a very funny film. It's very good. Yeah. I mean, we've got zombie babies in it. It's just, oh god.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, talked about Australian cinema and New Zealand cinema, I suppose, as well. Would Brain Dead fall into this category?
Sorry, which one?
Brain Dead.
Oh,
yeah.
Is that post-apocalyptic? I haven't seen it in so long.
Because I know it's not like a virus or anything, but it's a bite of a monkey, isn't it? Which sort of goes on the same sort of trend as what Outbreak would be. And I mean, that could be another form of apocalyptic event.
It is. I mean, I'd probably see it more like Outbreak to a degree, but oh yeah, absolutely. You know,
what about
absolutely. Spread really
when the
fast.
puppets take over?
Oh god. Oh god. Oh god. Well, I was just
it's not when Muppets go bad.
When Muppets go bad. Evil Kermit.
Yes.
Oh no.
There's a whole song about sodomy that I recommend everybody YouTubes immediately. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness.
But I've actually got a theory to why, we were saying before about why they don't often call them zombies anymore. And I think, how it's like, you've got the rise of people now like, Neil deGrasse Tyson and that sort of stuff who are so popular now. They're making science popular again. They're making it cool. Yeah. And because, of course, the reality is a zombie is biologically impossible. And so, to a degree, they've sort of got to try to change the genre a bit. They can't actually be zombies because a zombie is impossible. But if you turn them into sort of these creatures that are, or these people that are just infected by a virus, it kind of becomes a bit more believable. I don't know if anyone else has thought
that's where the whole history of the zombie and also the vampire originates. It was back in the oldie days when everybody carried pitchforks and it was all black and white and stormy.
Yes.
There was an illness going around. I can't remember the name of the illness now, and the scientists out there screaming. But there was an illness out there that slowed your pulse rate down to a point where you couldn't feel it through the skin, so you would be assumed dead. And there was your body needed iron as well, where the blood drinking comes in. So they would bury you thinking that you were dead, but you'd suddenly sort of get better again, and you'd crawl up out of your grave. And that's where the zombie and the vampire originated. It was actually a proper condition.
Well, yes, there were always these old stories that used to do the thing about people actually being buried, and then they'd wake up. They weren't actually
because
dead.
They'd feel for a pulse and they couldn't feel one, and obviously in those days have autopsies and things. They just chucked you into the ground.
And they would bury people with the little bells and so you could ring it. They could pull in the coffin to ring the bell outside of the coffin, like, "Hey, I'm still alive." Oh God.
Yeah.
Terrible.
Which I was very impressed. The recent film Autopsy of Jane Doe covered. I was very impressed that they put in that little fact in there because you don't hear about that very often.
Yes, the bell. So,
terrible.
But I think that's maybe the reason why they do it, because now people sort of go, "Oh, hang on, we actually understand some biology now." Hang on.
Right.
Also, you've got to bear in mind as well muscle spasms as well. I mean, I knew somebody that used to work in a morgue. And
God,
used to say that you'd hear like thumps in the drawers, and she'd go to you'd find out that basically their nerves, as they're starting to sort of stiffen up, they would kick, so they kick the instantly.
I'm sorry, it creeps me out so bad. Oh God!
She said that she was at a crime scene the one time, and there was dead bodies all around her. God knows where she was, probably Syria or something.
I know.
There was dead bodies all around her, and she said they were all standing there talking, and suddenly one of them sat up.
Oh God!
They weren't alive. It's just muscle spasm. She just sat
God!
Up. And apparently, one of the people she was working with had to go home sick immediately.
I'm not surprised.
Me. I had to go home. That was me. Oh my goodness, that's so scary.
I'm not surprised at all. My God, did you
don't
imagine
see that on CSI? Do you?
No. We have, although we see other stuff which is pretty close to it.
That's what gets me with these TV shows is that rigor mortis doesn't exist. They'll put the body down.
No.
It's all sloppy.
They don't show like the raging dead boner that that corpses get.
No.
They don't show any of that fun stuff.
The fact that they crap themselves and
yeah. A friend of mine brought that up one time. He was saying, "Okay, why don't they show people shitting themselves when they die?" And I'm like, seriously, do you want to see that? No, I know. We just accept. We are happy to accept that films will not be that realistic. I don't need to be that realistic.
The only time I think I've seen it mentioned, and also the raging boner thing, it was on 6 Feet Under. 6 Feet Under.
Oh my god! Okay, so you shit yourself and then you have a boner. That's so sexy. Can't wait.
Pretty much the deep.
Dying to see that. Oh yeah.
So go on, everyone, make your films more realistic. Give the bodies piles.
No, please don't.
Give the bodies piles of shit and massive erections.
Please don't.
And cast Jeff Goldblum.
Oh my god, that'll make it better. That'll definitely make it better.
Oh my goodness, dearie me.
Can you imagine that bit in Jurassic Park just redone for like you're standing next to a corpse? That's one big part.
Oh no.
Well, it actually gives something to a dead dinosaur, wouldn't it? You imagine if you're standing next to the dead dinosaur. I mean, it's like...
That'll poke your eye out.
Yeah, I know. I was about to say, take your eye out with that thing.
Anyway, if you're eating your dinner, I hope you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Too
slowly.
How many apocalyptic things are we up to now?
Well,
okay, let's see. So we've done nuclear and biological. Would we like to move on to environmental disaster?
Environmental. Now,
How can I lower the tone now?
Well, one of them we're not really going to mention because we're going to talk about a little bit later. So even though everyone will say you didn't mention it, don't worry, it's
more
coming.
Like a movie disaster.
So it's coming. But does anyone else have? I mean, I suppose Waterworld, was that meant to be environmental?
I think so. I think it was a polar caps melting, right?
Yeah. So that'd be greenhouse sort of concepts,
right?
Are there any others?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm thinking. What about Day After Tomorrow? Would that fall into?
Although it definitely would, but it's actually, but it's a half movie. It leads up to the disaster, so it's not just a world just after the disaster.
Well, that's the thing. You can't really make an interesting disaster movie without showing the disaster, can you?
Right.
No, that's exactly right.
I totally agree.
And I think most of the environmental disaster movies, which are post-apocalyptic, they tend to be B-graders more than they tend to be mainstream movies.
Right, and they show the lead up to it, so they're pre-apocalyptic because they want, like Garry said, they have to show the disaster to make the movie interesting.
What about Return to Oz? Because when she goes back to Oz, the whole place has been destroyed.
Damn.
I suppose that counts.
Never thought of it like that. Or you can watch The Wiz with Michael Jackson and Diana Ross. That's a disaster. Now, some people love that movie, though. Some people love that movie. Well, I didn't think it's weird.
What about the Matrix? Or is that more of a WTF?
That's more of a sort of, you're looking at a tech side on that one. It's more more than anything else.
Okay. Yeah, because what led
I wouldn't
up to
say
the
environmental because the environment that you're living in isn't the one that you are actually in.
Right. That's exactly right. But I just sort of wondered, sort of where that one fell.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. What happened to lead up to the whole Matrix situation was, because that obviously wasn't like nuclear warfare or biological warfare or environmental disaster. Was that AI taking over, or what was that?
Well, if I remember correctly, it's been so long since I've seen it. Didn't he get it was officially a mini disc, but it was seen as like some space age technology that he plugged into his it revealed the secrets of the Matrix, and then basically the equivalent of the Men in Black turned up and showed him what it was.
It's been a while since I've seen it.
I know. Lowered the whole technological
half our audience is going to be all pissed off, like, you guys don't know. It's like, okay, we watch a million movies, can't remember them all.
well, here's another one, which I'm not actually too sure if it's a WTF or it's meant to be nuclear, and that's Logan's Run.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, what the fuck did happen with that one? Is that one?
I thought what of another.
That? Because for them, they came up with the perfect society, but there's a price you have to pay, and that price is you have to die at age 30. You can't live over past 30, because then they can. Yeah, it's just the way it is. You want to live in paradise, you die at 30.
There's a show on Netflix that has totally stolen that storyline.
Oh, really?
What's that
if
one?
You look at the Netflix originals, you will find it. I can't remember now. What was it called? I read the plot line. I was like, that's just basically the TV series.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, because that's definitely a post-apocalyptic society where they're saying, okay, this is how it is. This is how you live now. Definitely different from how we live now, because we're not knocking people off at 30, because then none of us would be here talking right now.
No.
I tell you what, I did think of another film while you were talking about that, The Running Man.
Actually, yes.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's where.
Oh my God,
yeah, because society's broken down. You're quite right, and so the population is controlled via television. No, you're quite right.
Wow,
yeah, The Running Man.
Honorary mention for the sci-fi series Blood Drive, which is probably the greatest thing ever to happen to television ever.
Okay. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. I
haven't seen it yet either.
Oh, watch it! It's amazing.
Okay, I'm going to check it out.
Well, so it falls into the category. It's basically a grindhouse TV series. It's full of sex, violence, bad language.
Oh, I did hear about this. Okay, I've been wanting to watch that. Okay, I'm glad you gave it a good review, because I want to see that. Okay, I do want to see that. I have heard about that.
Experimented is because of Blood Drive, I'm telling you.
All right. Well, just quickly. Oh, do we have any others that we want to mention, or?
Okay, we just have a couple of WTFs that we say we know it's a post-apocalyptic society, but we don't really know why. We don't know what happened. So we reviewed Zardos from 1974 with Sean Connery running around.
Oh, God, I'm glad I wasn't around for that
Zardos.
one. Oh, God, it's so awful. With him running around in hooker boots and a red jock strap for the entire movie. Oh, except for when he changes into a wedding dress, because why not?
Of course.
Yeah, fucking terrible.
With that
I don't know why.
Oh, God. Zardos.
Yeah, Warren gave that movie a 0. That's how much he loved it. Okay. Then there's a Wall-E, which I actually really like. Wall-E from 2008.
Yeah.
That was because people are no longer living on the planet Earth. They live on spaceships that have everything they could ever need, and they're like hugely obese, and they have to float around a little. We're getting there. But just watch Wall-E, guys. It's really
God.
There's,
Wall-E, it makes me cry.
Yeah, it's so sweet. It's very touching. And the first 20 minutes, there's no dialogue. It's just really beautifully shot, really pretty.
If you're expecting it to be like Short Circuit, like I was, you're going to be very disappointed.
Tank Girl. We mentioned Tank Girl. Again, we're not quite sure why it's a post-apocalyptic society, but water is currency. I
always just assumed it was one of those Australian things. Everything filmed in Australia looks post-apocalyptic.
Yeah, I know.
And water is a currency in that movie. So, I mean, that's definitely different. That water is more valued than fucking money. You use water for currency. We got Judge Dredd, where you just have, random people running around being, fucking judge, executioner, and
so
jail.
Judge Dredd falls into the same category as Barbed Wire does. It's basically Mad Max with steroids.
Yes.
And the last one I'll say is The Road with Viggo Mortensen, where, again, it's a post-apocalyptic society. Don't really know why or what happened. And it's really strange that every time people encounter another person, they're afraid of those people. They think they're either going to get murdered by them or killed by them, because that's just, everybody's become super savage trying to survive, that nobody forms friendships or alliances. It's all about, kill them before they kill you, basically.
There is a slightly other post-apocalyptic type of film as well, and it's not where it's attacked to the whole world. It could be a personal thing where your life as you know it is completely different, like Fight Club, for example.
Okay, that's an interesting take. Yeah,
Baby Jane is another good one. It's basically everything she lived for was completely a lie.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, that's a good one. No, that's a good one. Wow, that's yikes. Yeah, that's a great category. Definitely.
Well, Yeah,
personal apocalypse.
Personal apocalypse.
No, definitely.
Well,
great.
There's just two last ones I'll just quickly mention, and then we should get on with everything else. But
one more.
Go for it.
Season 2. The War of the Worlds TV series season 2 went post-apocalyptic, and it killed the show.
Oh, yeah.
I love the way you just snuck that in there. Weed.
Yeah,
but
just a War of the Worlds referencing.
But one is The Quiet Earth from New Zealand, about a man who wakes up and he's the only person left on Earth. So what does he do? So that's a very interesting one. But the other one too, a very, very famous one, is On the Beach. We haven't mentioned, which is that the world has been totally annihilated due to a nuclear war, and the only society that still lives is Australia, because it's non-nuclear. And so Australia's been spared, and an American submarine comes to Australia to and they learn that there's a signal coming from America, so they have to load up a submarine and go back to America to find out if there's anyone still alive. It's a fantastic film. Fantastic film, yeah. It starred Ava Gardner.
This is why people watch stuff from New Zealand.
Yeah, it's really amazing because one of the stars was Ava Gardner, and there was supposedly an interview that was made when she came to Melbourne, my home city, to actually film it. And she said, if you were going to film a movie about the end of the world, where better to go to than Australia? However, it must be said, it's actually a fake news comment. It's not actually real. She never actually said that. It's one of those things that's...
It sounds like something she'd say.
Yeah, it does sound like something she'd say, but apparently no, she never actually
It'll
said it.
turn out it was like Joan Crawford or somebody, and they've muddled them up.
Oh, or something like that, yeah. But a straight Peck, yeah, Ava Gardner and Gregory Peck. It's a really good
I don't
film.
know whether they're the ones you don't want mentioned, but we mentioned two the other day that were basically very similar to each other. I don't know whether you want me to mention them.
Let's finish off. This is a great thing, and I reckon we could do an entire show on this. But let's mention it, Gary, because I think it's amazing. So yeah, absolutely,
basically,
go for it.
The same film seen from two different countries' perspectives, and that's The Day After and Threads.
Yes, because it's the idea of what would happen when the world ends due to nuclear war, and you've got the American version, which is The Day After, and you've got the British version, which was made was it only about a year's difference? About the same time, wasn't it, called Threads? And
just like living in England, Threads was bleak, pointless, and... And the American one was all like, fuck yeah, we're American, Steve Guttenberg.
How can you not like that?
But it is interesting that if you watch The Day After, it's like the sun is shining the next day. There may be radioactivity, but the sun is out. There's hope. We're going to rebuild the world. There's hope. But the thing is,
and there's a completely underrated performance by Jo Beth Williams in it as well, which never gets the attention.
Yes. But in Threads, it's very, very different, because Threads actually goes to, I think it's 15 years after the apocalypse. Is that right, Gary? I think 15 years. And there is no hope. The world is still in global winter.
There's bodies rotting in the streets. It's all destroyed.
They can't grow enough food for the people. There's no education anymore. And also, what's fascinating about it too, people are dying of radiation sickness all the time. And the other amazing thing too about it is the English language starts to change. Like 15 years, and they're not speaking the same language anymore, because no one's teaching the kids how to speak properly. If you were sort of to say, I'm leaving here and I'm going to go over there, so they would now start to say something like, me over go. Like their whole language changes. Yeah. It's a really fascinating. Apart from the horrors of when the bombs drop, and I think
there's a lot of very haunting imagery in it that never leaves your brain.
Oh, it's
once you've seen it once, your life is changed forever.
It's
okay. I'll save that one for a day I'm drinking. That way I won't remember. Yeah,
I'll put it to you this way, Velvet. It has consistently been voted the scariest movie ever made.
It is. And that's because it's the most realistic, because they did so much scientific study into it before they made it.
Oh, that's scary.
And the other thing too, it's stunning when you watch it, because you get like a narrator who narrates you sort of through it. And the other thing too is fascinating is all the statistics come up on the screen like an old-fashioned computer. You know, that, you know, sort of as it comes across. And it starts going through the death numbers by the hour. Yeah. So, and it's suddenly, so like the first bomb goes off and everyone's panicking and it's an air burst that takes out all the electronics. And then the first bombs start to hit the cities. And as they go off, but the problem is, but what's amazing about it, they don't all hit at once. They hit staggered over about 24 hours. And so, and just when you think, oh, it's all over, and then the siren goes off again, another bomb coming in. It is absolutely horrific to watch. And
that is horrific. Oh,
and you see the death toll, you know, that's been listed on the movie. And it starts off 100,000, 200,000, 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. And they're only talking about Britain. They're not talking about the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And when you think
of it, it's just like a made-for-TV movie on a made-for-TV budget, and it has this sort of horror that stays with you forever. It is
Yeah, look, you guys are talking about it like you just saw it, so yeah, it must be very haunting.
Well, that's the thing with Threads. Once you've seen it, it stays fresh in your brain your entire life. You cannot get it out.
You guys are making me afraid to watch it.
But even once you've survived the actual bomb dropping
movie,
right? It's then the next
put Little Mermaid on afterwards.
I know. It's then the next 15 years. What's life like over the next 15 years? And that in itself is just horrific. You know, you know, there's no hope. There's just no hope at all.
It is pretty much a documentary just on a factual event. That's how it's presented.
It was scary.
Oh, yeah.
But when you watch the day after, it's all like there's all hope. America, yay.
Yay!
Well, I think it's very much the day after was a Hollywood movie, you know, so it couldn't be. It had to end with hope. You couldn't end a Hollywood movie without hope. Where the thing is that was it the BBC that actually made Threads, Garry, or was it?
Yes, it was. Well, day after was officially. I hate to correct you. I do apologise.
Oh, okay.
The day after was a TV movie. It was a miniseries. It was a 2-part TV movie.
That that's right. Yes,
to feature length and then released theatrically. But that was done by NBC, and Threads was BBC.
That's right.
So they were both made for TV.
You're quite correct. I remember it actually being on the TV, and because I remember all the school teachers saying, "You have to watch this." They actually wanted the school kids to watch it.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. You know, see, 80s television, they don't make them like that anymore. My God.
Well, maybe we should change the pace a little bit and lighten it up after all of that.
Yeah, let's cheer it up. Let's talk about it.
So anyway, what we'll do is we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with...
take a Valium.
Yes, I know. And I'll get my heart started again, and then we'll be back with something which is a little bit more lighthearted.
It's time to get excited, short film fans. It's mini movie review time.
Yes, it is, and we're going to go somewhere a little bit different, somewhere a little bit funnier for the mini movie after all. I can't believe how depressing that conversation got.
There is still a death involved. I just want to point out that death.
Yes, but sometimes it can be funny. So what have we...
Dying is a laugh.
So what have we got this week? Velvet, what have we got this week?
All right, so first I want to say thank you, Warren, because you actually found our mini movie this week. So this is called Family Values, and this is an award-winning short film from Australia by the production company Ninja Milk. That's such a strange name, but I like it. Ninja Milk.
Not to be confused with the Brazzers movie Family Values.
Oh, no! Oh, my goodness. Okay. So this short film is... This is a very dark comedy from 2011, and I don't want to give away too much because you definitely got to watch it to the end. It only runs a little bit about 7 minutes, and it starts off with a father playing a prank on one of his sons, but it turns out he's actually playing the prank on the other. Then it turns out he's actually playing a prank on the both of them. And let's just say, you know what? You really just shouldn't joke about death. So what did you guys think? So what do you guys think of this short?
It's look, I thought it was absolutely hilarious. I didn't think it was a dark comedy at all. I just thought it was just piss funny. It was, because it's like everybody's trying to play a practical joke on everybody else simultaneously until it all goes horribly wrong. And I just thought it was just absolutely hilarious. I thought the four of them played off each other really, really well. This whole idea that, the father's going to fake his death to try to get one of the sons to respect him more, but then it turns out that he actually made a deal with the other son because it's actually also at the same time a practical joke on the second son, but then simultaneously they play a joke then on the mother, but the mother is also in lead with the father playing a joke on the children, but it doesn't quite go right when they think something's gone wrong. It's a bit hard to explain.
If you are just joining us, Warren, would you like to repeat that?
But look, I will say it's hilarious.
Can't give away too much. Yeah, we can't give away too much as usual with these short films because we don't want to give away the zinger at the end. Again, it's interesting that you say, okay, it is funny. I agree, but I definitely consider this a dark comedy because of the subject matter. Joking about death for me automatically qualifies it as a dark comedy.
Maybe
it does have probably a line. I mean, it is unusual for a 7-minute short to make you laugh out loud hysterically, and there was one line in it that absolutely killed me. And it's not giving away anything. It's like, Mom, don't get mad. Dad's dead.
Yeah, I know.
That made me laugh out loud too.
I know.
So I think this might be the shortest review ever because, like I said, I don't want to give away too much, but I think you explained it perfectly, Warren. They play off each other very well. It's very good, well acted. It's actually beautifully shot too. It's really high quality. Yeah. Camera angles, all of that.
Well, a number of these actors, if you live in Australia, you'll recognise them. I'll put it to you that way. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the mother is Zoe Carides. Everyone in Australia knows who Zoe Carides is. She's on television.
Who owns the Crocodile Hat Shop down the street. Zoe
Carides is on TV all the time. So
oh wow.
Okay. It's no, look, I thought it was hilarious.
One of the boys looked familiar to me, and I couldn't put my finger on who it was.
Oh, yeah, it's look, I
recognise.
Yeah, you'll recognise them if you're Australian or New Zealander. You'll probably recognise them. Some British, you'll probably recognise them. If you're American, you probably won't have a clue, but who they are. But
with that short though, I do have to say that for its short running time of 7 minutes, you do get fully invested in the whole family dynamic.
Yeah.
You know exactly who's with who, what the relationship's like, and everything. And it feels like you've seen more of it than you actually have.
Yes, I know. Yes. I know. It's
like tuning into a sitcom midway through, isn't it? You sort of can pick up on it straight away. You know who's the son, who's the mother, what relationship they have.
It's. I mean, I just love the way when you sort of said, Mum. Dad's dead. And it's a little bit like,
don't get mad.
Don't get mad, but don't get mad. But Dad's dead. But I just love the mother too. It's a little bit like, I'll put. Who wants a cup of tea? Oh, I've got some bickies. I've got some bickies.
It's very, very, very Australian comedy. It's very Australian comedy.
Yeah, which is why Warren's like, I think it's funny, and I'm like, I think it's funny too, but this is dark comedy, dude. But it's cultural differences.
All Australian comedy is dark. They know.
Would you say that, Garry? You reckon all Australian comedy is pretty dark? Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. I think you're right. Actually,
it's because I don't mean to sound horrible. I mean, because this is coming from a British person, so take it with a salt. But I mean, Australia is very happy-go-lucky, and I think that when they do their comedy, they tend to delve into the dark side because it gets more of an uncomfortable laugh.
That's a really interesting take, Garry. That's fascinating. Actually, that's
if you look at American comedy, it tends to go, especially if you look at sitcoms, it tends to be more sort of life is much happier and nicer than it should be, whereas Australia is the opposite. It's sort of like it's nice and happy in general. I mean, everybody in Australia is like the Brady Bunch, but
no, go on, Garry. I'm finding this fascinating.
Yeah, so basically just Australian comedy, and a lot of British comedy does as well. It goes dark because you don't have those dark thoughts in general conversation. normal. So the best way of creating the best kind of laugh is an awkward, nervous laugh. And that's where you grab your audience. And I think that's where a lot of British and Australian comedy comes in. They tend to go towards more dark subject matter. I mean, look at British comedies like One Foot in the Grave, for example. I mean, that went severely dark at different points.
Yes, a whole show about a guy preparing to die. I mean,
it's very repressed. It's the same way America, a lot of theirs is surrounded by sex because sex is very repressed in America.
Right. Although we do
really
love to fuck our brains out. But yeah, no, you're totally right. It's still hugely taboo. If you want to get a rise out of your audience, figuratively and literally, talk about sex, do something with sex on your sitcom, your show, sexuality. Yeah, it's true. You're spot on.
Suddenly the world has ended.
But it is
show somebody getting their head blown off live on Fox News and nobody bats an eyelid.
Yeah. But it is interesting,
Nice.
like you sort of said, it's like if you watch Australian television or movies, no one's ever really rich. I mean,
no one's happy either.
Yeah, it's.
I mean, if you look at Muriel's Wedding, that's another perfect example. I mean, she's basically just like a sad, sort of lonely girl who just lives in arse end nowhere in Australia.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes.
There's nothing glamorous about her at all, and you basically fall in love with her because she's so normal.
It's and well, although we get a happy ending in the end, but
you do. There's a lot of ABBA as well. Australians love ABBA.
Australians, well, in fact, a lot of people actually say that Eurovision may have brought ABBA to the world, but it was Australia that actually made ABBA. The ABBA movie was shot in Australia.
Mm-hmm. It's also Australia that is giving royalties still. I mean, look at Priscilla. Wow. I mean, Priscilla's full of ABBA. What's that line in Priscilla? I've said it before and I'll say it again. No more fucking ABBA.
It's amazing. Yeah, they're still hugely popular here. ABBA. It's just
I'm back on Priscilla again. We have to cover it one week.
Oh yeah,
but the thing with Priscilla is it wasn't meant to be ABBA. It's just because that was what the film company had cheap to license. It was meant to be Stockade and Waterman, but it was too expensive. So it was supposed to be full of Kylie and Jason and things like that.
Which do you prefer? Would you have rather have gone down the Stockade and Waterman track or not?
Well, I'm a Stockade and Waterman diehard, but I think ABBA works perfectly for the film. When we saw the stage show of Priscilla, it had Stockade and Waterman in it, and it suited the stage version, but it doesn't suit the film version.
Yeah, I'd agree.
The whole film soundtrack is full of golden oldies. I mean, it has to be golden oldies throughout. To chuck in a random like electro pop Stockade and Waterman song wouldn't have worked at all.
Yes. But it is interesting though when you look at television, sort of around the world, how certain countries always. Like for instance, British. Once again, you don't tend to get the real Downton Abbey and stuff. I suppose is a bit different. You had upstairs and downstairs, but you get those ones, and they show both rich and poor. But if you look at so much British comedy, it is generally either middle class or poorer people. It's not the really rich. Or maybe To the Manor Born. I'm killing my argument a bit.
I was just about to mention To the Manor Born, but To the Manor Born was a bit of an oddity, and plus it plays more on British eccentricness as opposed to class.
Yes.
But if you look at Keeping Up Appearances is the perfect sort of example. Basically, we see class as a way of taking the piss out of it.
Yeah. and if you look at like Home and Away and Neighbours, they're all middle class. They're not super rich or anything like that. But then
they're all adopted.
Yeah, well, actually, in Neighbours now too. It's the way it works, isn't it?
Summer Bay. That is just a sort of a little island crevice somewhere where they just chuck abandoned children.
Yes. Well, but that's how the show started. Home and Away was meant to be about foster kids. That's actually if you go back to the real season 1, all the kids were foster kids.
Old Pippa.
Pippa. I know.
Pippa and Tom.
But you think about how many stars those shows have got. I mean, with Kylie, Jason. I mean, I was watching The 100 the other night, and there you got Ed's neighbour, who stars in that show. You know, so it's amazing how many people.
The Hemsworths as well. The Hemsworths,
huge. Yeah. Oh my God! It got to the stage where pretty much if you're an Australian actor, you had spent at least some time in either Neighbours or in Home and Away.
And then we had like Guy Pearce as well.
Guy Pearce.
For itself.
Guy Pearce was Its Neighbours. Yeah. But
There was one in Ryan Quanten who played Jason in True Blood.
Yes,
well.
yes.
He was from Home and Away.
He was Home and Away.
He was Vinny.
Yeah, he was Ed's Home and Away. But I suppose where I was going with this is that you've got, like in Britain and Australia, it tends to be more middle class or working class. But in America, I know that there are some exceptions to this, shows like Stanford and Son and, and this sort of thing. But
Married with Children.
Wow, you took it way back.
I know. But even though that was a rip-off of a British show, but anyway.
Can I just slightly up it a bit? Married with Children.
Married with Children.
Oh, I love Married with Children. Love Married with Children. But most
fewer family life ever seen on American television.
But I suppose what I was going to say is American.
It's very glamorous, very upscale, very rich. But I mean,
it's very political as well.
Very political. Yeah, it's people want to escape, so. Yeah, of course we want to see rich, fabulous, beautiful people. Like, okay, you're not worried about money. We live that every day. We worry about money. We don't want to watch TV shows about people worried about money. We already have that fucking problem. So we want to watch problems that rich people have, which is, who do I fuck next? Who's cheating on who?
If you notice, though, with American TV, the rich, glamorous view tends to be saved more for drama, whereas sitcom tends to, like the most successful ones, you got like Married with Children and Roseanne. It all tends to be things people can identify with.
Yes, that is very true. But you are actually, that is quite right. I mean, Roseanne, they were a very humble family.
Until they won the lottery.
Oh,
the show went completely downhill.
Yeah.
The show went downhill. They got rich and everybody got mad. No, we liked it when you guys were broke.
And wasn't
relate to you now.
Absolutely Fabulous episode was awesome.
Yes. But wasn't there a very famous American sitcom about a black family in the 1970s?
Quite a few.
No, but they were meant to be super poor or something, and it was sort of like seen as being quite groundbreaking because you had a sitcom.
The Jeffersons?
The Jeffersons.
Are you on about what? Is that the one that span off? There's one that span off from Maud as well, wasn't there?
Sorry,
there was one that span off from Maud with Florida, the maid and her family. What was that one?
Oh my goodness! All right,
because you had all in a family. You had Maud.
Then there's Maud.
Ninja Milk.
And then there's Maud.
And then there's Maud. I love Maud. I spent £60 for the complete DVD box set of that, and I've never looked back.
Wow. Oh, God.
Nice.
Now, if anyone remembers, we were talking about a short film called Family Values.
Family Values.
But you can buy Maud for $60. Out Factory, who were also releasing TJ Hooker, I'm proud to say.
Oh, TJ Hooker. Wow, I love that show. That was great.
All right. Family Values by Ninja Milk. So you can follow them on their social media at Ninja Milk. You can also go to their website to see what they're working on next, ninjamilk.com, and be sure to tell them that Cult Movie Show sent you, and we apologize for straying so far on the review.
Well, in all fairness, it was so good. We didn't really have much to talk about it because we didn't want to ruin it. There was nothing
exactly.
Very, very, very good.
I know we don't want to ruin the ending. So
exactly.
That's exactly right.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be back with our two films. So our two post-apocalyptic worlds. So
prepare for depression.
We'll try to keep it a little bit lighthearted. So
commencement of the annual purge will begin after these messages.
All right. We'll be right back.
And I would sit there and play their albums in the album player all the time.
In the album player?
The Only Funny to Us podcast with brand new episodes every Monday night at 8 at onlyfunnytous.com.
Yes, definitely check them out. Monday night or Tuesday night, depending on what part of the world you live in. Now, movie number one, and I think this is going to be a bit of a controversial one. When we get started, and we are going back. We are going back to 1973 with the post-apocalyptic world and the movie known as Soylent Green. Now, we've had, actually, to be honest, a number of requests to talk about this movie.
And when I find out who you are.
So this is a perfect episode to talk about it. So what is now the other interesting thing too? I was just going to say before we start is that this is an amazing movie in the sense that so many people know the tagline, or what do you call it, the trope from this movie, but
the catchphrase,
but
the quote.
But yes, but they've never actually seen the movie. I'm amazed at how many people have not actually, especially anyone under 30, I reckon. So, but anyone over 30 probably have seen it. Under 30, maybe they haven't. So, but anyway, so Soylent Green. So we'll give you a quick rundown. We won't need so much of a rundown on our next film, but on this one, we probably will need to give you a run into what it's all about. Now, it's set in the year 2022, but remember that it was made in 1973, so it's meant to be a reasonable time in the future. Now, it's set in New York City, in a world where the population has exploded. I think, what is it? The population of New York is meant to be
40 million.
40
million people in New York alone.
Yes,
that's just New Year's Eve in Times Square.
Yes, that's right. And we're meant to have had basically an eco disaster. So. Basically, if you want to, it's meant to be the greenhouse effect has got out of control. Right. So basically, global warming in the way we want to talk about it today, where greenhouse, the idea of the plants have all died, there's not enough oxygen being produced, the carbon is built up, which has then basically meant that the plants won't live, the animals die off because there's no plants.
Would that stop my hay fever if that happened?
Yes, it would.
Then this is a godsend. Why are we making it sound like it's a bad thing?
Although it will bring up, there'll be no pollen in the dust though. So yeah, you'd probably be pretty safe. But also, so what has happened is the Earth, because there's now no plants, now of course the Earth's temperature is rising to dramatic states.
Have died.
So yes, so we're living in a pretty horrific world where there is still a government and there are still huge corporations, but all they basically do is control the food supply. There's nothing else to really do. Nobody has a real job. There's no work. People just live day to day trying to feed themselves. Now, our main character is played by Charlton Heston, and he is a New York police officer called Frank Thorne. Kind of cool name, isn't it? Frank Thorne for a police officer.
It is very New York cop.
I know, it is.
Yeah, definitely.
It is.
Definitely.
And he is called out to go and see or to investigate a murder at a rich person's house. In other words, a gated community where the rich business people live, not where just the scum of the earth, everybody else lives. Now, because he's a police officer, he's sort of what you would call the middle class, if you like. So he still has to live with the common people, but he gets his own house. So it's a little bit different. But this is
more like an apartment. I wouldn't call
apartment,
that a house.
yes, an apartment. A single room apartment.
The live-in wife, maid, mistress thing.
Yes.
Oh my God.
But if you consider that most people just live on the streets or wherever they can find, it's not a bad life for him in comparison. But anyway, so this is in one of the rich people's places. So he goes to investigate it, and from this he will find a conspiracy. Yes, that basically the government and the big corporations are hiding a major secret from the people, and in order to keep power and to keep the people fed. So I don't want to say what the conspiracy is, because of course that will give away the movie. And unlike the next movie we're going to, well, actually, should we give this one away? Does it matter?
I think we should go ahead.
Because I've got something to say on this, because officially the poster art destroys the ending.
I think we should just. All right. I think we should definitely go ahead and spoil it. It's from 1973.
Yeah.
So even though we're going to spoil this for you people, this is a movie I think you should still watch. So I'll say that. So don't feel like, oh, you ruined it, I can't watch it. Go ahead and watch it, then come back and listen, or go ahead and listen to us and still go watch it. It's still surprising, even if you know it.
Spoiler.
Know what happens.
We're going to tell you what It's the secret.
What is the secret of Soylent Green? So here we go. So
Somebody
basically,
watched the trailer.
I know. So basically, the food which has been supplied to the people to keep them alive is produced by a company called Soylent, and it's basically it's just basically a compound turned into biscuits. It's full of soya beans. It's full of all sorts of...
Yeah, they said it's plankton. They're like, oh, it's from the sea. Right. It's plankton. It's nutrient rich. And yeah, everything is like in these fucking little wafers. So you have Soylent Red, Soylent Yellow, and you have Soylent Green. And everybody's crazy about Soylent Green. And Soylent Green's in short supply. So every time they deliver it is on Tuesday. And people riot to get this shit.
That's right.
So, it sounded like the nicer one.
Oh God, I don't want to know what that's made out of.
So what we find out is that Soylent Red. Yes, what is the secret of Soylent Red? So Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow are basically just a soya-based type product, but Soylent Green, here it comes, people. It's made out of people. Soylent Green is made out of people. So basically, as people die, they are collected up. Or you can volunteer to terminate your death. We will find that out as the movie goes on.
Which I was tempted to do midway through the
film. And then the bodies are taken away and they're processed and turned into these crackers. So that is the secret that basically he finds out.
I don't know why that sounded funny.
I know.
It did. Sorry.
So anyway.
Unfortunately, this movie is not funny at all, people, unfortunately. We're laughing now, but this is
not
really
even Mystery
bleak.
Science Theater could save this one.
No, it's really bleak, really gritty. This is a movie I've seen before, but I saw it back in my 20s. And back then I was shocked by the movie. But now as an adult, I'm even more shocked by this movie because, first off, the visuals are really disturbing this film. The treatment of women is really appalling.
Oh, God, it's unbearable.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. But the whole concept is so scary because I'm like, oh, wow, they could actually fucking do this shit today. There's so much shit that we eat. We have no idea what's in it. They could literally be grinding up corpses and feeding it to us, and we would eat it with a smile.
It inspired a Buffy episode as well, this movie did.
I remember that.
She's running around going, the burgers are people. The burgers are people.
But it's also, I mean, this film has also inspired The Simpsons. The Simpsons did an episode talking about Soylent products. But what's interesting, you talk about how this could, really happen possibly, is the whole idea. Well, you think about it, Garry, you're British. What about all those stories continue about horse meat in hamburgers and
I know, but let's not get onto Pizzagate in America.
Yeah.
A lot of cannibalism there.
Yes.
Do a YouTube search, you are lost down that rabbit hole for months.
So the idea is, it's not that far, I suppose, maybe from fiction. That, I mean, in a world which is basically the environment is now gone, the environment that we know or we're used to is gone, could this really happen?
I mean, from a green point of view, I mean, it's recycling, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah. Well, I suppose technically, yes.
Oh my goodness gracious. This movie really touches on so many things. Like, okay, movies from 1973, but already a lot of the stuff that they address, I'm like, oh my God, this is so relatable now. It's scary. First off, you have the old man. Up there in years, he remembers real food. He remembers eating an apple,
and he will end up being the only character you like in the entire movie.
Yes, he's the only likable. I agree. No, definitely. I actually wrote my notes that Charlton Heston's character in this movie is a fucking kind of a scumbag. He really is. He's not a nice dude at all.
Also, it was made in the time before bras were invented.
Well, that's a good thing. I like that. I don't like that at all.
It's 1973, people, remember. 1973. You didn't wear a bra. That's just...
Yeah. That was, and plus, I mean, like, people couldn't afford to feed themselves. I'm not surprised not a lot of people were wearing bras, so...
Yeah.
No, but yeah, just you start realizing how scarce everything is. Another thing that was interesting in this movie was like nothing works. Like technology is totally broken down. There are no computers in this movie at all. They're having to do everything by handwriting and reading books. So it's even easier to hide secrets and information when you don't have that electronic trail of information.
Yeah. The government would kill for that these days.
Isn't that the truth?
I think that's the thing that would make this film very, very difficult in some ways to remake, because the problem is that because it was made in 1973, it was pre-computers,
Yes.
computers existed, but only huge corporations, had them.
Right.
When now we live in a world where it might be kind of hard to try to say to people, you've got to go back to books, libraries, I don't know. It's lost that.
I mean, it's the same sort of universe that 1984 is in, really.
It is, it definitely is. Without doubt, without doubt. Because that's the thing. What's the name of Charlton Heston, obviously, as Frank Thorne. Here's I just love that name. I just love saying it.
I feel like it should have CID at the end. CID.
Yes, I know. Yes, don't worry, nothing to see here, people. Frank Thorne is on the case. It's
although he spends most of his time like the sheriff in The Simpsons.
Yes, I know. I know. But what do they call his friend? Because they actually work as a team. He's called
his friend's called Soul.
But Soul is meant to be like his personal computer system. Soul is meant to be the one who does the research. He goes back to libraries, or what exists as libraries now, and tries to find out information about people, what information they can find. So he's sort of like the researcher, where Thorne is more he's the heavy, he's the detective. He goes and roughs people up and all that sort of stuff.
It's very 70s macho.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's like when he actually gets to the apartment when the murder's been committed, and he's far more interested in robbing the place himself than he is actually trying to solve the crime.
Oh yeah, it's people like, if you love Charlton Heston, if you've never seen him and you've never seen him in this movie, particular Soylent Green, you will not like him. He is such an unlikable character in this movie.
Let's not forget the leering he does to that beautiful black lady towards the beginning.
Oh my God. Yeah, he beats up a woman in this movie. He demands sex from a woman.
I think there's at least 3 women he punches in the face.
It's sad that we're laughing about. It's definitely not funny when you're watching a movie. It's actually really upsetting.
It is.
Okay, let's talk about the women in this movie. So prostitution, the world's oldest profession, and women in this movie make use of that. But it's a whole different thing. They are not prostituting themselves for money. They're prostituting themselves for room and board. But it's to the point they're called furniture in the society. Right. And that is such a scary concept to me, because they are so accepting of it. Oh my God.
You only have to see the trailer. I mean, there's a bit where it's on about his sort of living mistress, and it goes, she came with the house. It's like,
exactly.
What?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like, because what is it? Thorne actually asks her when he first meets her, do you belong to the apartment or do you belong to him?
Yes. Exactly. Like personal or building. And she says building. So, and that's when you realize, if you are considered furniture as a woman in this apartment building, you get to live there. That's great. But you also get to cook and clean and sexually service anybody. And I do mean anybody. Yeah. So literally you can walk into somebody's apartment. Yeah, you can walk into somebody's apartment and sit down on a chair, because that's furniture. You don't ask the chair for permission. Well, she's furniture, so you can walk up to her, force her down on her knees, and give her a nice skull fucking, because she's furniture.
It's basically like walking into the Brady Bunch house and asking Alice to give you a blowjob, isn't it?
It's really a disturbing concept, the whole furniture thing, and I like, wow, it's really disturbing, and they accept it. They're just like. And even like the guy who like owns the building or manages the building, there's one scene where he's like beating up the furniture people. When I say furniture, I'm talking about women. I'm not talking about actual furniture.
About is like in the cushions.
He's actually goes in and beats up a lot of women and starts yelling at them. And one girl's like, "Oh, he's not as bad as some of the others."
I know.
Like, wow. She was just like not mad. She just accepts
Ted Bundy. What the fuck?
But yeah, literally, like, there's a scene where Charlton Heston walks in and says, "Here, come here in the bedroom." "Okay, get on the bed." And and while he's interrogating her, he's having sex with her, and I'm like, I hate you, Charlton Heston. Although just come back in this movie.
You wouldn't want to tell him your comings and goings, would you?
No. No, definitely not.
All right. But it must be said she does fall in love with him. And she is.
Yes,
she
I mean, he is nice to her eventually.
Yeah,
He's nice to her eventually.
I mean, she's prepared to actually give up that lifestyle and go and live with the masses just to be with him. But because he loves her and because he knows the secret now, he says, "No, don't. Yes, don't leave. I want you to stay there. I want you to stay there forever. You can't be with me. Stay there because." There's no future, with me. We're eating people, for God's sake. There's no future.
Right.
But it must be said that the rich don't eat the people. They get real food.
No.
We should just point that out. Yeah.
But the real food is
there's
such
a big
short
moment
supply. Sorry, go ahead.
There's a big deal about strawberries, which instantly makes you crave strawberries while you're watching this film.
Yes.
And this movie makes you grateful for what you have, because in this movie they're talking about, like, people have never seen meat. They don't know what beef is. People have never eaten an apple.
That one moment where it's like a big revelation about one bit of steak hanging up on a hook.
I know.
Oh my God. And I wonder how much that costs, because in this movie, I mean, this is $1973 we're talking here. They're talking about a jar. They're talking about a jar of strawberries being $150. For a jar of strawberries, people, $150. That's how in short supply they are. There's no grocery stores. You go to the grocery store, the guy is behind a fucking locked gate to keep people out.
It's basically like shopping a little at Whole Foods after you've got used to shopping at Walmart.
And the other thing too is that it needs to be pointed out, to put that money into some sort of real context, is that when they do their pays, because there's a scene in there, because they get paid by these sorts of payoffs and stuff, and Charlton Heston is paid $10.
Oh my God!
So you put that into the thing. He just taken his salary $10, but a jar of strawberries is worth $150. And in fact, he makes the comment when one girl is actually smoking a cigarette. And I actually at first thought it was meant to be a joint, but it's not. It's actually meant to be a cigarette. And he actually says,
because there's no plant. Remember,
there's no plants. So where's the tobacco coming from? And so he actually makes the comment. And he actually
the weed part. And
but he actually makes the comment: if I was rich enough, I'd smoke 2 or 3 of these a day.
Cigarettes, people, not packs of cigarettes.
Yes, not packs, a single cigarette.
Singles.
2 or 3 a day. Yeah. Yes. So
it's just the amount, the gross poverty in this film is actually shocking. Especially for Western cultures, it's so easy for us to take for granted how much space we have, running water, air conditioning, clean water, just an endless supply of water whenever you want it. Grocery stores, they have none of this in this movie. None of it. They ration water. You get to go to the fucking stand in line for hours to fill up a jug of water. That's your water. You got to use that to eat, cook, and sleep if you have anything to cook. People are buying fucking crumbs, the fucking Soylent Red and Soylent Yellow crumbs. Oh my! What
got me? I don't know whether it was mentioned or not. I'm sorry, Velvet. I didn't mean to.
Oh no, go ahead.
What got me? I'm not sure I heard it referenced, but I was doing about 5 other things whilst watching the movie. Right now, but. Is the reason it was overpopulated because people from surrounding country areas would have moved into the city because that's where it was?
Yes, because there was no life in the country anymore.
I'd love to have known what the sort of wider impact of it was, to be honest.
Okay, so there's a heat wave all year long, so greenhouses destroyed all vegetation. So no, you got it totally right. People are moving to the city because they're giving out these rations of this fucking synthesized food that's supposedly soybeans and supposedly plankton, but it's fucking people. They're grinding up dead people and feeding people to people. It's really upsetting.
This gets me on the rant I wanted to do, right? I had never seen
I had
never seen this movie before it was suddenly thrust upon me a couple of days ago when I stupidly accepted to come on this program. Sorry. But I watched the trailer and I thought, what is the secret of Soylent Green? I didn't just know.
Yes.
And then I added it to my media server, which gave me the poster art, and instantly I saw a poster of a giant tub full of human beings. So I was like, well, now I know the secret.
Now you know the secret. That is,
it's not a modern poster. It is the original poster from the 70s, which shows you exactly what the secret of Soylent Green is without.
Well, you're smart. A lot of people haven't figured it out, and if you didn't figure it out, that's okay. People, you weren't supposed to. I think Gary's a little more intelligent.
That was the thing. They spend the whole. I think it's because I saw the trailer first, so it was in my head. What is the secret? So I'm looking for something, So I'm ready to uncover a mystery, and then when the second I load it up, there it is. It's like, oh, and then
that's the secret.
The first half of the film, I'm sitting there thinking, just get on with it. I'll find out it's people.
Oh my goodness gracious!
The complaint with this film, it would have been a brilliant reveal if it wasn't on the poster art.
Yes,
I oftentimes will avoid fucking trailers for movies nowadays, or even old trailers of any movie, because they do have that tendency to ruin it for you. And a lot of times I do also avoid the fucking poster art, because sometimes, again, that does ruin the entire movie for you. So I'm sorry it got spoiled for you, but at the same time, I guess I'm kind of glad it prepared you for what was.
Yeah, but I mean, like in general, if you were going to see a movie at the theatre, for example, you wouldn't be able to escape the poster art, because that'd be the first thing that draws you in to want to see it in the first place. So officially, it would have given you the secret without you actually even seeing the movie. I mean, like, it's my own fault for leaving it so long to watch it. But I mean, in general, if you think back when it would have been in the theatres, you would have seen that poster.
But that's what I'm wondering, if when this movie came out, if this movie at the time was such a revolutionary idea that people their brains just didn't go there until they saw the movie.
You wouldn't think about it. You'd probably just think it was just sort of really dodgy.
Just like, what is it? What is it? Yeah. What is the secret of Soylent Green? But
it sort of shows how dark it's become over the years.
The overall depiction of poverty in this movie is also really shocking. Like, people are so homeless. They're just like overcrowded. Every building you go in, you see people sleeping on the stairs. And I mean, just piles upon people. When you go down the stairs, you have to like jump over them and squeeze your foot in between people to get through them. And then like when they start rioting because they ran out of Soylent Green, like there's this one woman I think this is kind of funny because some people have pointed out there's a scene where a woman is like getting her Soylent Green. She comes out with a bag and she complains it's only a quarter kilo. The United States has not converted to the metric system.
I know.
We are still on the English system, so they got that part of the future wrong. Let's hope the rest of the movie is wrong about the future.
Well, if you've never seen the movie but you visited Newark in the US, you know roughly what this film's like.
Oh my god! But when they start rioting and they bring out the fucking like, what do you call those fucking trucks? I don't even know what you
just
call them.
Hands on there, really. Officially.
Well, they're garbage trucks.
Garbage trucks, and they start scooping up people like garbage and dumping them in the back of the garbage trucks to control the crowd. And I'm like, people are going to get injured getting dumped on top of each other like that. And it's just a disregard for humanity, and this movie is shocking.
I don't think it really worries them, Velvet, because all those trucks are going to do is go off to the Soylent factory anyway. Mm-hmm. As soon as they've scooped those people up, those riders aren't now going to go off to the police station and be charged or whatever. They're just going to be taken straight down to the Soylent factory. So
it does make you wonder. It's one of those films that makes you think a lot about stuff the film didn't even tell you. I mean, what about people with like conditions like blood conditions and stuff? Would that still be in the food? Would it get spread throughout everybody else?
Oh god, I'm sorry. That's this movie.
I think realistically they're probably working on the premise that science has got to a level where they're able to deal with all that sort of stuff. I would I mean, if you're able to turn people into crackers, I think they've probably got to a point. Do you know what I mean? Where they can deal with all that sort of thing. I mean,
so, but it's an interesting thought though. If you try, it's like
my goodness gracious!
It's like vampires. If they bite somebody with AIDS, do they get AIDS?
Oh man!
Well, no, because the vampires can't get sick.
That's how they work around that.
Yeah, but a vampire's dead. Remember, so a vampire can't actually get sick. So the answer is no. But
anyway, back to the secret of Soylent Green.
Well, it does bring up that great line when I think it was it Dracula Dead and Loving It, where it's I don't know if it was that one or it was another one, but it was but Dracula actually gets really hungry one night and he actually drinks the blood of a drunk and he wakes up in the morning with a hangover.
I haven't seen that in so long.
True Blood covered that as well. I mean, they even covered the illnesses carried through blood. So I was wondering whether that in general would have happened in the sort of world of
That's a
Soylent
great.
Green.
Yeah.
That's a great question.
It's interesting, though. It's interesting, yeah.
8 years later.
Okay, so
It's
in
interesting.
case we haven't made this clear enough, they have this whole like euthanasia thing where if you decide you want to die, like you don't want to wait to die, you're ready to die now. They have these clinics that you can walk into, and they give you this lovely ceremony. You drink the Kool-Aid, it looks like Kool-Aid, and you die. And
Which
then
is
you
very emotionally
Go
done.
ahead.
For a film like this, it is very emotionally done. I mean, it does actually bring tears to your eye.
Yeah.
I did too. I got really emotional during that scene, surprisingly, because I remember actually when I saw this, like in my 20s, I laughed during that scene because I was an insensitive 20-something. Yeah, and now in my 30s, I was like really touched by that scene, and I was like,
now we have the concept of our own immortality. It's actually quite a terrifying.
Right? Yes. Oh my God. Yes. Exactly. But also like. Oh my God. Okay. So it's just so shocking when you realize that like all these people are like just deciding they want to die. And then you find out right after they die that they ship them off to the waste disposal plant, which is, people don't question anymore because people don't have funerals anymore. Everybody's broke. Nobody can afford a funeral. So when you die, a garbage truck comes and collects your body and they take you to the waste disposal plant. So you think, okay, they dissolve them in lime, they burn them. I don't know. You just think they're getting rid of these dead bodies. No, they grind them up and make crackers out of them and sell it as Soylent Green, and it's so disturbing.
Well,
it's the secret of Soylent Green.
But it brings up all this idea. I mean, if you want to think about it in some degrees, it's like the Dark Ages with the plague. When the plague used to ravage through Europe, where it's that old idea of Monty Python, bring out your dead, bring out your dead. Where people just died and they were just thrown into the street,
that if you were considered overweight and too heavy, you would actually be asked by your family to move down the downstairs first floor of the house because you'd be easier to carry out.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And it's like, excuse me, you're fat. Can you die downstairs?
Stairs,
Thanks.
please. Yeah. It's got a lot to do. I mean, you think about it, this movie does sort of kind of look like that sort of Dark Ages time, where because you think, what was the Dark Ages? The Roman Empire had just fallen, technology had all ended, people had literally technologically gone back almost 500-600 years, because
no sewer system,
right, yeah. So all this had happened, and then on top of that, you got hit by the plague. So in a sense, this movie is very Dark Ages to a degree.
Mm-hmm. It is. I think a lot of post-apocalyptic films have that sort of feel, though.
Right. Also, literacy seemed to be at an all-time low because they just hint at it because there's a scene where...
Well, it is 2022. I mean, Twitter.
Yes.
That's all you have to say.
Where Charlton Heston's character, Thorne, he asked somebody, do you know how to write? So evidently, you can't even take literacy for granted anymore. People don't know how to read. People don't know how to write. Knowing how to research and read books is a huge skill. And also, that was interesting, too. So we get Sol, which is basically his human computer, as we were calling him. He's basically a researcher, possibly librarian at one point. And no, actually, he used to be a college professor. That's right. He was talking about he used to be a college professor. So, like, even colleges are all fucked up now. So people aren't getting educated.
I don't know if that's accurate.
Yeah. And he goes to this group of people that evidently, I guess the woman, I think they called the woman a judge. So she used to be a judge when they had the whole court system. And he is basically saying, hey, read this information that I've got, because they confiscate this information from the murder scene. And that's when he finds out Soylent Green is people. And the judge is like, oh, my God, we need proof. Did you guys notice that this female judge had a German accent?
Yes. I noticed that.
No, I didn't notice that, to be truthful.
Yeah, okay. I thought that was interesting that because the man was asking her, Saul was saying, how can this be? How can people do this? And I thought it was interesting that they had a German character saying people were capable of horrible things. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but I'll just let people read into it what they get.
For that period, though, they did have a lot of sort of like flashback to the war references. So it is possible. Very much possible.
So thought that was interesting. I was like, read into it what you will, but yeah.
But
I mean, you've got to think about it. It's like that was the 70s. That was like 30 years later. Those were the people that made those films were the kids who were brought up during the war. So
that's very
it's
true.
the same
Yeah.
now. You get a lot of flashbacks to like 20 years ago and things like that in movies now.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, no, that's very interesting. But it is also interesting that the legal system still does work to a degree. There are still judges, and you know,
And that is the
lawyers,
most unbelievable part of this film.
I know,
Right.
but it's
It
just
really is.
But
Oh my God.
But to a degree, they work underground, so they don't work publicly. They work underground. So if the police can come to them with certain information, they can then take that information. But here's the amazing thing about the movie. They don't necessarily go to the government with it. They have to go to the corporations. So in a sense, the corporations are actually running the world. The government are really just there as, in a sense, the spokespeople for the corporations. You know, Soylent runs America. It's not the government.
Right.
Sorry, I keep interrupting everybody.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
It's just I keep remembering things. I'm like, I've got to mention that. The thing that got me is for an early 70s movie, how strong the black characters were.
Yes.
Because that's something that's
Yes.
very sort of hidden in 70s past. You're either blaxploitation, sexy mama, gonna kick your ass. or you're basically treated like a second-class citizen. But the black characters in this film are quite strong, powerful, independent characters, which actually came across quite nicely on the screen, especially nowadays.
Yeah, I like that too.
Yeah.
I think that's also because the movie's supposed to take place in 2022. So it's kind of interesting that they've gone beyond racial, problems, but now they're dealing with this population problem and how they're going to feed the people, and it transcends race. I mean, that's pretty. Oh yeah, wow.
But it didn't fall into any of these stereotypes of the time, which I was quite impressed about, because the second, we saw, what could it be described as, like Pam Grier's twin at the beginning?
Yes.
I thought, here we go. She's going to be an ass-kicking mama with an axe to grind.
No, unfortunately not. No, she was furniture, unfortunately, which was, yikes, really upsetting. Also the church. Oh, my God. So, again, if you haven't seen this movie, people, watch it at least once, because first off, it's going to make you appreciate what you have now.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
But just the space, like the constant claustrophobia, like every fucking where is crammed with people. You go in this church, it's just overrun with people, and the priest is whacked out of his mind. He's exhausted, he's overwhelmed, and then you find out he's burdened by the truth. He knows that Soylent Green is people because one of the CEOs that gets murdered, because he knows that Soylent Green is people, went to confession and told this poor priest. So he's burdened by the truth, and he just can't believe how fucked up society is now. But I like his character acting. He was just all whacked out and like, should I make room?
And the best
poor guy.
The claustrophobia of it all is anybody who's been to Disneyland around Christmas.
So, but at least we can say that this church opened its doors during an emergency.
Oh, that was very modern. If you listen to this,
have to read your current events, people.
Yes,
current events.
But, so if we're going to sum up
Wikipedia Harvey.
So if we're going to sum up Soylent Green, how are we going to rate it, and what was everyone's just general overall opinion? Do you like it? Not like it?
Okay, so I'll start off with the positive. I love this movie. It's a very dated 1973. The style, the overall feel of the film's very 70s, but the overall message and story holds up so well. Even though we're spoiling so much of it for you, if you watch this movie, you're still going to be shocked by the imagery and the overall story arcs and the ultimate end of this film. Oh my God, Charlton Heston, strong actor as always, super non-charismatic in this film, but he plays the part perfectly. He's an asshole cop that abusing his power so he can get the extra strawberry here and there and a dragon a cigarette and a little bit of bourbon, But really, you realize that he sucks as a person because his life sucks. Look at what he's dealing with, and he's like overworked, trying to keep his job. Everybody's always sweating. Everybody stinks and smells bad. They never get to take a shower or a bath. I mean, it's just a disgusting society. Overall, I love the movie. I think it's worth seeing. It's shocking. There's parts that it might bring a tear to your eye. It elicits an emotional response. For me, this is I'm gonna go almost all the way on this one. I'm going to go... No, I lied. I'm going to go all the way on this one. I'm going to say 5 out of 5 Erics on this one.
Okay. Ooh, wow. 5 out of 5 Eric Roberts points. So here we go. So for a bit of balance, Gary, what did you think?
Well, it's not a film that is entertaining to watch while you're watching it, but it does leave you with a lot of questions which you ponder over once it's finished. And I do like films that give you a lot of stuff to think about. When you're watching it, it does come across as the most gloomiest, depressing, most drawn out, long-winded film you will ever see. But as Velvet said, the imagery in it is haunting. It does stay with you. There is some very big emotional parts in it. Once you can get over the whole furniture aspects of it, it is actually it is a good film, but it's bear in mind it's not what it's advertised to be. It's like when you see the trailer, it's like, oh, it's going to be this dramatic action-packed conspiracy. It's not. It's very talky, very talky.
Yeah.
Try and avoid the poster art, even though we've told you what the ending is. But
right.
But
yeah, you'll still be shocked. Yeah.
I mean, it will stay with me for a while. I don't think I would repeat view it a lot. I'd probably revisit it in about 10 years when I've forgotten about it.
Which is what I did. That's exactly what I did.
So, I mean, I'll give it 3 Erics.
Okay. That's still pretty good, though.
You've got to bear in mind, post-apocalyptic isn't my favourite genre.
Right.
I mean, for me personally, the first time I ever saw this film, I didn't think much of it, to be truthful. I thought it was a kind of...
Same here.
I thought it was a very boring film. Rewatching it again, this is the third time I've watched it now, and watching it again, it was only actually yesterday that I watched it again, and I'll be honest with you, it really, I loved it. Like, it came up on the scale.
Maybe I should have watched it twice, because I've only seen it the once. Perhaps I've got that first immediate impression that everybody has.
Yeah, maybe it's a bit like that. I know the first time, when they rebooted Star Trek, okay, I saw the movie and I hated it, and then I watched it a second time and I loved it. So it was like a second viewing totally changed it for me. So
it all depends what expectations you go in with. I mean, I went in with the expectation of conspiracy action movie.
Yeah, and I think I went in originally with the idea of sci-fi film. So, so it wasn't what I expected. But now I love it, and I think the other thing too about it, it's a very poignant movie for right now. I mean, it's talking about global warming, greenhouse effect.
The liberals are
no, but it's something that's what I suppose what I mean. I'm not trying to push an agenda here. I'm just saying that it's something it's something that we're all talking about. Is what I'm trying to say. Some people say it's fake. Some people say it's real. Well, science says it's real, but anyway. But some people say it's fake. That's right. But the thing is that it's talking about a subject which is continually in the news these days, is what I'm trying to say. Zombies are not continually in the news, is what I'm trying to get at.
The news?
So this is a subject which we are talking about all the time, So in that sense, that's where I'm sort of trying to go with it. It's a subject which is maybe a bit closer to home right now to when it was in 1973.
I mean, I've done the comparison earlier on in this, and I do apologise for doing it again, but 1984, that is the exact same sort of feeling of despair that this film has.
I agree.
It is very similar. And it's very, I agree. You said it's very important now, like 1984 is.
Yeah. So I'm actually, the only thing I will say about it is it's still... Even though it's not a long film, it's only an hour and a half, but I still think it's a little bit drawn out.
It does feel like a good 4.5 hours.
Yeah. That's my only complaint. But then again, I'm watching it from modern eyes. I'm not necessarily watching it from 1970s eyes. I think if you watch this in 1970, you probably would have said, no, I'm taking the pee out of you there, but I mean, I've had so many arguments with people who talk about the original Amityville in that way, and I'm like, it's amazing, and they go, it's too slow. It's like, you're old. I know. Yeah. And so no, look, I really liked it. I'm going to give it 4 Erics.
Okay.
We've got a 3, a 4, and a 5.
Yeah, look at that. So you got to watch this movie and form your own opinion. As you can see, we're all divided, but we were all moved by this one film one way or other. We were either repulsed or touched or shocked or grossed out. Yeah.
And when we do the 20th anniversary of this podcast, I'll watch it again and I'll let you know that it was awesome and I'll give it a 5.
Well, on the 20th anniversary, if the movie's correct, you won't be able to watch it. You'll be living on a staircase eating Soylent Green.
A movie ticket will cost $150.
I'd buy the strawberries and see films these days.
And then strawberries will be $2,000.
But one thing I did want to say, which I kind of thought was a little bit funny, and I don't know if anybody else saw it. It definitely was not intended when the movie was made, but it's now post a certain comment that Charlton Heston made. And there is a scene where, the very final scene, where Charlton Heston is on the stretcher, and he's got his arms stuck out in the air, going, "It's people, Soylent Green is people," and I just sort of thought, from my stone cold hand. I'm sorry. It just, it's just Soylent Green from my stone cold hand. I don't know. It just stuck in my mind. Just the way he had his arm out in the air.
I mean, that paranoid ending, though, is very Invasion of the Body Snatchers as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's basically, we know the truth of what's going on, but you sound crazy.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's exactly what this movie left me with, that shitty feeling that I haven't had in forever when I watch a movie. That literally, you just feel like shit after you watch this movie. So I'll admit that. You just feel like, oh God, what a horrible society and what a horrible ending.
Time it perfectly with Golden Girls Marathon and you'll be good to go.
So this does not have a happy ending whatsoever. So be in the mood for a movie that's not going to have a happy ending. That's what it's great. It's great.
Really quickly, just really quickly before we go to the next movie, is do you think the secret's out, or do you think the secret wasn't out with the ending of the movie? Do you reckon?
Well, I think that's why I feel so shitty. The secret's not out because he sounds crazy.
No, the secret's not out. I see it as body snatchers. Yeah. Basically, he would be seen as a crazy person.
Okay, yeah. No, they're
all just kind of like, what the hell is he talking about? Soylent Green as people? It's plankton. What the fuck's he talking about?
Human beings will be human beings and just follow the official announcements, and they won't listen to one crazy person shouting that it's people.
Yeah.
Right. Oh God.
Yeah.
I mean, what are those people that claim that all the politicians are reptiles or fucking reptilians?
You know what? I've been delving into the conspiracy theory arena a lot recently because it's so damn entertaining. When you get bored,
it is. Yeah. I cry laugh sometimes. How entertaining
some of these reptilian things. I mean, I had to do. Just to plug the other radio show I do, Big Brother Radio. Thank you, Doc, if you're listening. I told him to get a plug in, and I did it.
Nice.
Nobody's noticed, so we're good. So anyway, I have a conspiracy corner where I read out the conspiracies that all the fans come up about the show, and I get it double-checked by production, and they tell me what the real truth is and all this and the other. And we had one the other week, which was that Emma Willis, the host, is a reptilian alien from Venus who is under MK Ultra control.
God. Wow.
The TV world in turn, which will take over the world.
Wow.
Dude. Other people, and they were like, what?
But that's the thing. What if that was true? Unfortunately, none of us is going to believe that guy, and it's just going to be business as usual.
It's true. And the best thing is, I mean, I found one about Heidi and Spencer Spidey, and we had them on the show, and I actually got them to answer questions about this so-called conspiracy theory that they were in the Illuminati, which was quite entertaining to actually sit down with Spidey and say, "Are you part of the Illuminati?"
Oh God.
Oh, the Illuminati. Oh, my favorite. I've told Warren this one like 10 times because it makes me laugh. I think it's so funny that, for whatever reason, almost every black entertainer in America is a clone. This is the conspiracy theory that everybody's a clone, and that Michael Jackson actually died back in the 80s when his hair got caught on fire in the Pepsi commercial. So they replaced him with a clone, and that's why he looked so fucked up when he died in the 2000s, because his clone was deteriorating.
And there's another one.
Not just all the fucked up plastic surgery, but anyway.
It makes me laugh. I'm sorry.
Oh, God.
There is another one where all of the male celebrities are actually females, and all of the female celebrities are males, and it's pushing a transgender agenda, which would make us gay.
Oh God! Who the fuck believes all this shit? The amazing thing is
does
that...
this mean, though, with me, though, does it mean that though I fancy Zac Efron, I am now officially straight?
Yes, it does.
I am
man.
pure.
Oh,
Crazy.
it's just...
Oh, my God.
There's some great ones around. There's some great conspiracy theories. You do a whole show just talking about them.
Oh, if you ever get bored, send the Michelle Obama ones, they're hilarious.
Oh my God, there's so many that my friends send them to me, and I just sit there and laugh when they start telling me these theories, because we're all laughing. But
apparently,
like I said,
Michelle Obama's real name is Dave, believe it or not.
Dave. Oh, God.
Dave Obama.
but unfortunately, one of them might be true someday, and none of us are going to believe it.
Yeah.
So in comes the Soylent Green eating reptilian from Mars, or what was it, Venus? Venus.
But, yeah.
Has to be Venus.
Well, here you
Mars
go.
are a different race of aliens altogether.
Well, here you go. Here's a quick question just before we move on. Are there any conspiracy theories that have actually turned out to be true?
Oh God, yeah. Oh God, yeah. MK Ultra.
MK Ultra is the biggest. Yeah.
Yeah.
MK Ultra.
If you tell people now about MK Ultra, they go, "No, please," and then you show them like.
Yeah, and for people who are not familiar with MK Ultra, that's basically the United States was drugging a certain part of the population with hallucinogenic drugs and monitoring the results. And this is without people's express permission. There was also the Tuskegee experiment, which has been proven true, where they gave a certain portion of the African American community syphilis. And they left it untreated for many years to see what the ultimate effects of that would be. Again, this was out there express permission, and instead of helping these people, they gave them a disease and let them die from it. So, conspiracies do exist, and sometimes they're true, and they're horrible, unfortunately. I don't know about the alien ones, but drugs,
conspiracies,
drug and
there
disease.
is always a basis in fact for a conspiracy, but unfortunately they surround it with such crazy nonsense that the fact is lost.
Right.
Well,
the ones to really pay attention to, I'm sorry, really quick, the ones to really pay attention to are any ones regarding food, drugs, and diseases. Those are the ones you really want to pay attention to when you hear conspiracy theories.
And always remember, NASA stands for never a straight answer.
Oh, dearie me. Well, the thing I always love about them is that if you ever notice that the people who are the most outspoken about a conspiracy theory also have the least knowledge on that particular topic.
Yes.
Have you ever noticed that?
Jet fuel cannot melt steel beams, says a man who's a librarian and never worked in construction in his life.
That's right. 9/11 conspiracies. No one's an architect. No one's a builder.
Building 7.
Right.
9/11. No, seriously, the true bit 9/11 is Building 7. The rest of it is made up.
Oh, well, building, I suppose there's information, with Building 7 as in, it's a bit weird.
It was just convenient to destroy that one at the same time. That's all it.
I plead the fifth on 9/11.
I know.
She was part of the conspiracy, just involved. Question her answer.
I plead the fifth on that one.
Where were you on the day of?
Where were you?
I was out of the country, so I can totally play into that.
She was somewhere being furniture, weren't you?
I was an easy chair.
She was George Bush's furniture.
Oh, dear.
Yuck. That would be awful.
Oh, my God. You imagine that?
I don't know. There's some power there, some good money behind them.
I don't know. I don't think I could do it.
No.
Not with George Bush.
No.
I mean, what would you like to do?
All right. Here we go. All right. I'm going to get the filler to play. Here we go. We are. God, we've digressed. Okay. Is the filler playing? Yes, it is. So we will be right back in just a moment. Well, we are back, and we're going to finish off with, I think, I don't know what people think.
With a musical number.
Well,
come on,
yes.
Velvet, you're just too good to be true.
With, I think, maybe one of the most famous post-apocalyptic movies ever. I don't know if I'm maybe going a bit overboard with that, but from 1968, the original Planet of the Apes. And Now, this, I don't know if I really need to explain what happens in Planet of the Apes. I mean, everybody knows the story behind this.
Also, it's one of them self-descriptive titles like Snakes on a Plane.
Yes, yes. but
there's always somebody who's never seen the movie, so.
True. But then, once again, before we start, should we give the ending away of this?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
It's super iconic. Even if you've never seen the movie, you know the ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
even if you've never seen this movie, you know the ending.
It's pop culture now. Everybody knows it.
Right.
Yeah. Right. So basically, just very, very honestly, in 30 seconds or less, it's about a space crew from Earth who basically are on a deep space mission, and then they come back to land on Earth only to find that they've crashed on a foreign planet. Where they find that on this planet there are apes and there are humans,
and they are all TV presenters.
Yes. And on this planet, basically the apes rule and the humans are just the animals. And so anyway, Charlton Heston gets caught up in all of this. Now, it should be said that, of course, the humans can't speak in this version of the original Planet of the Apes. He gets shot in the throat with a bullet from one of the apes, and it takes him time to heal.
Yes, the apes have firearms, people.
They have firearms.
They wear clothes and they use firearms.
If they had that in Gorillas in the Mist, it would have been a much more entertaining movie.
Yes. And so anyway, he gets put into, like the cages, like all the rest of the humans, and only then to find out that he tries to escape and his throat gets better, and it turns out he can talk because, of course, he's not from this planet. And so suddenly the apes are faced with the fact that they've now got a talking human. And this, of course, totally blows their mind because not only can the human talk, but according to their culture, you've got to have a soul, a spirit, to be able to speak. And humans don't have, they're just animals. They don't have a soul or a spirit. So how can this person talk? Anyway,
explain the scarecrow invisible.
So it'll go down this path a little bit until in the end he basically escapes, takes a young woman with him that he's fallen in love with, to only then find out the great deep and dark secret that they have, of course, landed on Earth. This is actually Earth. It's just Earth in the future after you blew it up. You blew it all to hell!
You maniacs! You blew it up! Yeah, post-nuclear war.
Yes.
Fair.
And it's probably got the most iconic end visual ever seen in film.
Yes.
Exactly. And you see the Statue of Liberty peeking out of the beach. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Now,
this is New York.
So what does everybody think about Planet of the Apes, the original? And then we'll go down all of the sequels and then the reboots and all the rest of it as well. But what does everyone think, just firstly, of the original?
Gary, would you like to start?
No, sure. I mean, I've been a movie buff since I was a kid. I just want to put that out there. I've been obsessed with movies, especially sci-fi and horror, since I was a small child. And I can understand the importance of Planet of the Apes. I know the importance of the film, but as I've sort of grown older, I haven't enjoyed it as much. I don't know why, but I think it's because it's so ingrained in pop culture now that it just feels samey now. Do you know what I mean? It's like it inside out and backwards, even when you've only watched it once.
Yes,
right.
It is one of those films that unfortunately is ruined by constant sort of airings and reshowings and special editions and all things like that. But for its place in cinema, it is definitely right up there, and it deserves to be right up there.
Very nice.
Oh yeah,
basically, nice. I didn't like it very much, but it's important to the genre.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, this movie spurred on, what was it, 4 sequels, I think, after this movie.
Yes.
And then it was...
And they're all terrible.
The second one's not bad. The second one's all right. But
no.
3, 4, and 5, you have to... See, the problem was that 1 and 2 were sort of mainstream films, right? Cinema-released films. Right. The problem was that by the time they got to 3, 4, and 5, they were now basically drive-in cinema B-grades.
And made for TV as well.
Yeah. Yes. So that was the problem with them, I suppose. And the other problem too is that the second movie, Planet of the Apes 2, is honestly just for the first 3/4 of the movie a retelling of the first movie.
Yeah.
It's just the same bloody script,
Yes.
until they go underground and then they find out there's a second group of humans and, and so forth. But
they worship the atomic bomb.
They worship the atomic bomb, I know.
It's basically season 2 of Lost. Is what
but then of course we got the original then reboot. Well, no, we should say after that, of course, there was a TV series. Of course, as we said, Planet of the Apes. We then, of course, got the reboot with Mark Wahlberg.
Oh, terrible.
It's
terrible.
Although
it does
that. But although, I know you like it because of Mark Wahlberg. I've got to admit, is it Estelle Warren? Estelle. Who was the female lead?
It was Estella Warren. Yeah, you got it. Estella Warren.
Wearing the skimpiest outfit you've ever seen in your life. So for me, it was worth it.
Didn't even notice she was there.
So I liked it for that reason. But of course, it doesn't really have anything to do with the other movies. But then, of course, we got the reboots now, which I know you recently went and saw was it a triple feature?
Love the reboots. Yeah, they did right before they released a War for the Planet of the Apes, which came out this year. They did in one of the theaters in one of the big cities out here in Montana. They did a triple feature where they showed Rise of the Planet of the Apes from 2011, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes from 2014, and then they premiered War for the Planet of the Apes 2017, back to back to back. This is really beautifully done. The CGI has come so far. It's super realistic. The plots are engaging. You care about the characters. I mean, and the strongest one in the trilogy is actually the third part. Like, they finished this on a ridiculously strong note, beautifully made. If you haven't seen it, go see it. You're going to love it. What they did with this...
Continue on.
I'm sorry?
These new ones, is it one continuous story? So it sort of goes from one movie to the next? I haven't seen it.
It is. It is. It's really well done. You follow Caesar, and it's really interesting the way they do it, because like in the original Planet of the Apes are the bad people, or the bad characters, excuse me, are the villains. Whereas
do you call them people? That is beneath them.
I know, right? I couldn't help it. It's ingrained in my psyche. But
you monkey racist.
This reboot's really amazing. They do a mixture of the apes being the bad characters, being the villains, and the humans being the villains, and then like it really comes to a head where it's kind of, it gets where the lines are muddled. You have ape characters fighting alongside the humans. You have humans fighting alongside the apes. It's really amazing what they did with this story, and it's still true to the source material, but it's the whole concept is totally changed and updated and believable, and it's just amazing. It's really like, once it comes out on that trilogy pack, I'm buying that. That's going to be in my collection. Cannot wait.
But
we're not reviewing that. We're reviewing the original Planet of the Apes.
But it still does follow that idea, because of course, if you watch the original 5 groups of films, the whole idea, of course, is that Dr. Zira and Cornelius steal the spaceship and go back to present day Earth, where of course she falls pregnant and has a child, which is the main ape. Fred, we just said his name before. It just slipped out of my mind. Caesar. Sorry. So they have Caesar, and then of course it's Caesar who then is the one who makes the apes learn how to speak English. And I can't even believe Caesar starts an ape union. I think is it in the I think it's in the 4th movie. He starts a union, and you've got apes protesting down the street with signs about their rights.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the Planet of the Apes is what we've mentioned before with a lot of the post-apocalyptic things. They are social commentary.
Yes.
Well, actually, that is the point. I mean, if we get back to the original movie, there is a huge amount of social commentary in this. I mean, there's, and I know that there's been a sort of an argument about the difference between the apes and the humans. Is that I know some people have referred to this often as a black versus white issue, but others have actually referred it more as a animal versus human, like a role reversal. So I'm wondering.
I see it different.
Oh yeah.
I see it as a remember where you come from.
That's a good one.
Okay.
That's a good one.
Okay.
That's a good one.
That's
It's
interesting.
basically you're not as important as you think you are because we came before you. It's because of us that you are there.
Yeah.
Ooh,
That's how I.
Yeah.
good one.
That's interesting. Because the other thing, too, is that the original story
Well, depends
of this...
whether you subscribe to Darwin or not, of course. Put that disclaimer out there.
I think
Don't offend any religious people.
Well, I think us normal people subscribe to Darwin, so I don't think we've got anything to worry about there. Oh, let's be honest, people, for God's sake. I mean, notice I just said for God's sake at the end of that. I know.
I know Mr. Sake, and he is lovely.
I still remember once my sister met her brand new neighbours when she moved into their new house, and their next door neighbours were highly religious, and they came in, my sister was listening to Christian radio, on the radio, the Christian radio station, and it was playing music.
I doubt they were in the house.
Well,
do you know what I mean?
but the woman actually then said to my sister, she goes, "Oh, are you a Christian?" And my sister just answered directly, "Oh God, no." I just like the music.
And from that point on, she played
funny.
Black Sabbath. But
there's the other.
Oh my goodness!
But there's the other social argument in this, just very quickly, and then we can all talk about it. Is that there's also the big argument in this about science versus religion. That's where that religious thing was coming from, where you've got sort of like the conservative value, which is represented by sort of like Dr. Zayas, and then you've got the sort of the more the liberal scientific opinion, which is basically from Cornelius and from Zara. So you've got this argument between the two of them, So that's a fascinating thing within itself as well.
That was a similar theme in the late 60s and early 70s, especially with American and Canadian productions. It was either went overly religious in one direction or anti-religious in the other. It's like if you look at things like Amityville or The Exorcist and things like that, it was The Omen, another perfect example. It was all full on. You had to have full knowledge of religion to understand the basic premise of the film.
Damien, it's all for you. Sorry.
And then you have the sort of counterculture of movies where it was basically science, and science is the important thing. I mean, that followed on from the 1950s B movies, but it was there was no middle ground in the 60s and 70s. There was no sort of religious and scientific, and it wasn't until you got to sort of Planet of the Apes where it covered both aspects.
It's really interesting. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, what do you think about that, Velvet? Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Sorry, yeah. One of these days we'll have to actually set up videos so we can see each other talking. But no, I love that about this movie, is that it does cover science and religion. That it's interesting that the ape culture in this film does have the great creator, as they call him, and that's the big, ape in the sky who created everything, and that created all man and ape. And it's just even the racial stereotypes amongst the apes themselves, because even within themselves they have infighting, because gorillas are violent, and then the orangutans are like the spiritual ones, and then the chimpanzees are the scientific ones, and you see them always kind of infighting, insulting each other, and that carries on throughout the series of the original Planet of the Apes film franchise.
It is a literal holding up a mirror to humanity, where you are actually seeing humanity looking at how ridiculous they look.
Exactly. Yes. And also the way that the apes have this whole kind of like top of the pyramid mentality, like, oh, we're the smartest, we rule the planet, this is our planet, we're the dominant species. And it's a great role reversal to see these humans that don't have the ability to speak, they don't have the ability to read and write, and so the apes automatically assume that means that they're just dumb animals, and that they don't have a soul.
Taste of their own medicine, really. I mean, it's basically saying this is how you treat everybody else other than you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing movie. It's an amazing movie. It's a reason it's held up for so long, not just because of the zinger Twilight Zone type ending. I mean, and also the prosthetic makeup in this still holds up quite well, obviously by today's standards.
Yeah, when you
obviously
think it's practical those days as well. I mean, it's insane.
But
it's amazing practical makeup.
Oh yeah, But the other thing too is that what's interesting about it as well is that, you were talking about the different groups, Velvet, with the chimpanzees are sort of like the scientists and the gorillas are the army, and the orangutans are the politicians. But what's interesting about it is that we learn as this movie goes on that even though the politics and religion are one and the same in this, like they're not interchangeable. Like your religion is politics, and that's very interesting considering people who are blowing up bombs and stuff in the world today, trying to force others to the sense that your politics must be your religion. So that's kind of interesting. But what is really interesting...
that is historical as well. I mean, the US and the UK suffered that exact same thing back in the old days.
That's very true. But what is fascinating about this is we then find out that the orangutans, the politicians and the religious leaders, they actually know the truth. They're hiding the truth from everybody else. They know.
Oh, how far-fetched.
Right. I know that they actually know. They've been doing scientific archaeological digs, and they know that the Earth was ruled by humans before apes. But they're keeping it a secret from the other apes, which is interesting. I think that's fascinating.
Population control their beliefs, control the way society works, keep them ignorant to a point. Yeah. I mean, this is a common practice today.
Yeah, it is. It's the practice.
Yeah. It's a fascinating movie.
You've got to remember that it's based on fact.
Exactly. And once you get over the ridiculous premise of this movie that humanoid, ape creatures are ruling the planet. Well, maybe I shouldn't say it's ridiculous. Maybe in a parallel universe that is happening. Who knows? But once you get over the premise of this movie, it really is just great social commentary. I mean, it's even representative of its time, makes it a little bit dated for 1968, because there's even a scene where there's the nephew of Zero's like, oh, the man, trying to get me down, and which was, people were against the establishment. The young group was against the establishment. They didn't want to work for the man. And
yes. But it does
mention that.
But if you think about it, this does actually play on reality of history, because what's fascinating about this story is you've got the idea where the various different primates, so chimpanzees, orangutans, whatever. And then you've got humans, right? So humans are like the dominant species, and all the other primates that we have on the planet are sort of subdominant, right? But what's really interesting is you don't have to go that far back in human history where Homo sapien was not the dominant species. Homo neanderthalis in Europe actually dominated humans, and it wasn't until the climate changed and warmed up that Neanderthals started to die off, allowing Homo sapiens to take the lead. And we're only talking...
Homo.
Well, but here's the amazing thing about it. What happens in this movie is kind of what happened in Europe, we're only talking 10,000 years ago. That's not very long ago. You remember there were two species of human on this planet 10,000 years ago. There was Homo neanderthalis and Homo sapien, and they lived side by side. And that's kind of fascinating if you put it into terms of this movie, how basically something has happened, in this case a nuclear war, which has allowed the other primates to take a superior stance over humans, which is exactly what happened to Homo neanderthalis in Europe. So it's
and we can take that a step further, and we can take that a step further, because there's actually a scientist who's theorized, and he wrote a paper about it, that he believes humans eventually are going to evolve into two species again, because all the smarter, pretty, and educated and well-to-do ones are mating with similar, and the ones that are not so good-looking, not so smart, are mating with the not so. It's going to be, but the way he said it though, it's kind of like in the time. He said it was kind of like the time machine, where it's like you're going to have like the and the fucking like troglodytes.
Yes.
I don't know if it's going to be that bad.
I can now confirm exclusively that after spending 3 months studying Big Brother this summer, that this has happened.
The troglodytes are real.
We hire them for a reality show.
But I was just going to say, Phil, that does sound kind of a little bit eugenics in its sense. That,
the way you said it, no, totally.
Because there is an argument, actually, and that is that unless there's a huge major change in societal shift, that humans actually can't really evolve any further. Not physically. They can mentally, but not physically. But here's the reason why, and that is that humans now, there's no concept of natural selection anymore with humans because
that's because they keep putting warning labels on things.
Well, yeah, it's like the weaker now don't die out. That concept, right? It doesn't happen. It still happens in other species. And so the thing is, the species physically, anyway. I'm not talking brain power. I'm talking physically. It doesn't actually change. People who are born today who may have a disability or some such thing, they don't die off. They still reproduce and have their own children. So, so it doesn't sort of change. So, but it's a fascinating topic, though. It's a fascinating.
The crazy thing is, though, after this was a couple of years ago. Like right after I read that article, I went to a store and I was in an aisle shopping for candy, and the guy next to me looked like a troglodyte. And I was just like, "Oh my god, I'm serious."
Please tell me it was Walmart.
He was standing there, breathing heavily, drooling. I was just like, his hair was a mess. He literally looked like a troglodyte, and I'm like, "Oh my god, it's already happening!" What
are those people in the industry that are like that?
Well, what are those videos you see all over YouTube of their what's that big store? That big store in America, not Kmart, it's Walmart. And you see all the videos of people in Walmart.
The people of Walmart.
Yeah,
people of Walmart is the greatest invention. It's why the internet exists. I'm telling you, people of Walmart.
I think it's so fucking big that so many people come in and out every day. That's why you see so many crazy people, because in a smaller store you'll see less crazy people. I think it just increases your odds of seeing weird people just because the store's so huge.
Yeah.
It's hilarious though.
The thing is, I love the fact that Walmart plays up to it though. They do have a laugh with it, which I do enjoy.
I love it.
But I suppose just for our non-American listeners or whatever, Walmart is because I don't know a lot about Walmart myself. We
call it a mega store. So it has everything. A lot of locations now have an automotive department where you can get your car serviced. Some of them have nail salons, hair salons in them, as well as a grocery store, and then just an all-around everything store. Like if you need to buy clothes, if you need to buy shoes, if you need to buy school supplies, work supplies, everything all in one.
Is Asda, which is actually owned by Walmart. It is actually Walmart Asda.
Okay. But you don't. But I suppose what you would argue about Walmart is you're not going to see Ivanka Trump shopping in Walmart, are you? It's aimed more at a.
She'll be behind some very dark glasses.
Yeah. It's aimed at more a working class group of people.
Oh, yeah.
Would that be fair? Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Which is the people,
affordable prices.
They're supporting, apparently.
Sorry.
Which ironically is the people they're apparently supporting.
Yeah.
So why doesn't Ivanka go in there?
Yeah, I don't know. I have to ask her. But it's oh god, Walmart. We were talking about Planet of the Apes.
I don't know. It's very similar in a lot of ways.
Yes, but
if I walked through the doors of Walmart, I would stand there and go, no. As well.
You'll never come back out. You'll realize how much money you've been wasting. Look at all the savings.
But we mentioned
the rock bottom. The Statue of Liberty is underground.
Yes. But we did mention the prosthetics just quickly. You mentioned them, Velvet, and we should talk about that a bit because for 1973, the prosthetics they're amazing.
68.
Oh, what did I say?
1968.
Sorry. I was thinking. Oh, yes, I was thinking about Soylent Green.
He's still trying to discover the secret of
Soylent Green. Yes. For 1968.
Oh, it sounds like Crow from Mystery Science Theater. Comment with that. I don't know why.
The prosthetics are amazing. They're absolutely the way they're able to get the mouth movements with the actors wearing those prosthetics. It's really amazing.
Yeah, no, it's huge because that's what was really groundbreaking at the time was that, okay, they weren't putting ape masks on the actors. They were really doing these whole movable prosthetic prosthetic pieces. So you could see their eyes moving, you could see their mouth moving when they're speaking. Really impressive, and it's very seamless. And it's I think this is funny. In later films, you do actually get to see some of the apes naked, whereas in the first movie, you only see their arms and their head, because obviously they're wearing clothes to hide the rest of, so they didn't have to prosthetic people all the way. But there's a funny scene in this in one of the sequels where you see a naked gorilla in the sauna. And I just was like, oh my God, that would be so uncomfortable, being in a sauna wearing a full-on gorilla suit. How hot. Yuck. Gross.
Especially on the studio lights as well.
Oh God. But it's amazing prosthetics, holds up to this day.
I mean, I have Wikipedia open. Yay. Shout out to Wikipedia. So, of course, this is 100% factually accurate. But the film won an honorary Academy Award for John Chambers for his outstanding makeup achievement. So it actually won an honorary award. That means it wasn't even nominated. They just gave it to him because that's how it was.
Yeah, they were like, no contest. Yeah, I mean, even by today's standards, it still holds up quite well. Like when I was rewatching all the movies recently, even though we're only reviewing Planet of the Apes, I went ahead and rewatched all the sequels from the originals. And just watch the first one, people. Don't watch any of the others.
It does. You buy the fifth one. What's the fifth one? Is it Beneath the Planet of the Apes?
The fifth one's actually boring. The fifth one's actually boring.
Because that goes
Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Battle for the Planet of the Apes. Because the problem, because once you get to movie number 3, you've gone back in time and you're back in 1970s Earth now. So
it's like Star Trek 4.
Yes, it is. It is. It's exactly the same.
We have to do a day one because we're losing the audience.
Yeah. So it changes, and then I think it ups. What is it, 100 years into the future, just after the nuclear war or something like that? And that's, oh God, it's, oh God, yeah.
What I found out from Wiki here that I didn't know anything about was they actually did an animated series in 1975 as well called Return to the Planet of the Apes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Okay.
I'm guessing it didn't do well considering none of us really have seen an episode.
No, although, mind you, it took me a long time to actually watch the animated version of Star Trek. So
I used to watch that when I was a kid. It used to be on a little cartoon network.
I want to give an honorary shout out to the cartoon series of Little Shop of Horrors that lasted a whopping 8 or 9 episodes.
8 or 9 episodes.
I vaguely remember that.
Basically, the plant, so it couldn't be carnivorous because it was a kid's cartoon. It was a vegetarian.
Right. There was a kid's cartoon called Inhumanoids when I was a kid that nobody remembers, and one of my friends actually does. Do you remember this one? And it was like the most violent kids cartoon about all these monsters that were violently eating people. Like it literally would show them like digesting them and ripping them up, and it was like that was 80s television for you. I think they were just like
it's no wonder the cartoons. Is it really?
They just bought the it's like what they would do is just like buy these cartoons from overseas and just start playing them on TV without looking at what they were first.
And that's how it started off, wasn't it? I mean, it was essentially a Japanese TV series, so all the bits with the monsters and the people in costume were all from the original Japanese TV series, and then they just added an American school story around.
I can remember watching Japanese anime growing up. You know, like early in the morning. Some of it was so violent, and it's primetime kid shows. You know,
that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, I know. Wow, yeah, I know.
We're all getting old now. We've dealt with
they don't do this stuff at all anymore.
In our day, they used to put cartoons on first thing in the morning.
I used to get up at like 6 a.m. to watch Saturday cartoons, and I kept seeing this Humanoids one with like monsters eating people, and I would go to school and tell everybody about it, and they were like, "Okay, are you making this up?" Like, that's you have a nice imagination. I'm like, no, this is a real cartoon. Like nobody else ever saw it.
Nowadays, though, somebody says to us, "Oh, get up at 6 a.m. and watch this." Like, fuck that, I'll record it.
Yeah, I know. That's what I got a recorder for. I'm getting up.
I'll watch it later.
I know, but something else that should be said is that apparently the story of with the movie, because it is actually loosely taken from a book, and
that's right.
And originally the screenplay for this was that the apes, like the ape village where they live, it wasn't actually meant to be that. It was meant to be a proper modern city where the apes drove cars, flew planes. It was like modern day Earth. Yeah, well, it was modern day Earth, just with apes doing the human stuff, and humans were in zoos like apes. And
in all fairness, they could run the place better than what we've been doing.
I think they probably would, to be honest. But the interesting thing is why they changed it and made it so much more primitive and just a little small local town that they were sort of in was because they didn't have the budget.
Right.
The original concept was it was meant to be this very futuristic world, and apes would be it'd be like looking at modern day Earth, just role reversal.
Right.
But they had to change.
That would have been cool too. That would have been cool if they had the budget. But I love what they did with it.
Well, actually, I in a sense actually prefer this more medieval life that they have rather than a modern life. I actually think it works better. I'm not too sure how. I don't know. What do you guys think? What do you think, Velvet? If they had have done it.
I think that would be cool. I would have liked to seen that because, I mean, with the recent reboots, they are functioning off of a society that humans are dying off because of a plague, not because of atomic warfare. So they have access to all that technology and what have you, but they decide to build their societies instead off the grid. So, I mean, that's just a nod to the original, but I love that you could have a modern day setting, but ultimately, you know, the apes prefer to make their own communities, make their own homes. And I like that they did that in both versions, the newest version of this and the original. So, yeah, I think maybe it would have worked, but I like what they did with it. I like the whole your own little society, your own little buildings. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I wonder how it would have been if it was done the other way. I've had to just double check that this fact I knew was true. It's one of those ones you tell people at parties, and then afterwards you think, was that actually real, or did I make that up? Yeah. But Rod Serling originally wrote the first script for Planet of the Apes.
Right. Yeah.
But they couldn't do it due to cost.
Yeah.
Right.
And it just made me wonder what a Twilight Zone type Planet of the Apes would have been like. I mean,
the zinger at the end is because of Rod Serling. So I mean, that's definitely his touch on the movie.
Yeah,
it's Earth all along. Statue of Liberty on the beach.
And,
it was the final shot that sold it to Fox in the first place. They filmed a sort of mock version of the ending, and that was all Fox needed to see to go, yep, we're doing that.
Yeah.
We're doing that.
Even today, it's a haunting ending, especially if you haven't seen the movie in a long time or if you've never seen the movie. Even with us telling you about it, watching the movie and seeing that final shot where Charlton Heston's in this movie too, people. He was in Soylent Green. He's in this movie. He's in fucking the Omega Man. He's just the post-apocalyptic
Basically, whenever
actor.
Humanity is going wrong, Charlton Heston is...
There's Charlton Heston, I know.
But when you see the scene where it does the reveal and he realizes he's on Earth and there's been a nuclear war and everything's been fucked up, and you see the Statue of Liberty, it's still a shocking imagery. It's still really haunting, and there's a reason it's so iconic.
Although to
and
people our generation, try watching it without thinking of Spaceballs.
Yes.
It's coming out of her nose. Oh shit! There goes the planet. So, yeah, very funny. I forgot about that actually.
But
Sorry, I just put it back into you.
But the other thing too is that any Simpsons fans will be so familiar, I think, with Planet of the Apes because how many Simpsons episodes relate back to Planet of the Apes?
I think there's at least 5 tree houses of horrors that have had.
But not only that, we had the famous episode where I think it was that Selma gets married to Troy McClure, and of course Troy McClure gets hired to star in Planet of the Apes the musical, where we actually got songs about Planet, like Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus, Dr. Zeus. And we can't forget the other great one, you know, I've known every ape from chimpanzee to chimpanzee, but you never made a monkey. No, you never made a monkey out of me.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Wasn't there a shot in The Simpsons once as well where the Donut Boy statue is actually poking up out the beach?
Yes, yes. Yeah. And when Deep Space Homer, when Homer actually gets hired as an astronaut, and they're doing the press conference, and he says, we'll be fine as long as they don't send us to that damn dirty Planet of the Apes. And then Homer goes down on his knees and goes, "You blew it all to hell."
Oh, see, this movie's so iconic, and it pops up in other pop culture references.
It's
too.
everywhere.
I think it's everywhere, especially now with the reboots.
Yeah. I mean, it's actually as well. We should give it like a tip of the hat to actually being a reboot that worked.
Yes,
I agree.
Yeah, it really has.
It completely revitalized the entire brand, which was it was completely dead in the water.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I think
they did it justice too. If you guys haven't seen the reboot, definitely. And now we're not talking about Planet of the Apes 2001. That's the Godzilla. That's the American Godzilla that everybody forgot. That.
Perhaps that's the secret. I mean, talking about Godzilla as well. I mean, perhaps that is the secret. You reboot it once and it's terrible. Do it once more and it'll be huge.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point. That happened
People
with Godzilla,
and go, it's not as bad as the last one. Like this.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
They learn from their mistakes. It's like they learn from their mistakes.
Although we're on about the 18th bloody origin story for Leatherface now.
Oh, my God.
I know.
Oh, no. That's really gruesome, isn't it?
The other day,
they rebooted Saw. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, they have. The other day I worked out with all the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies, there is 4 different storylines running through the entire thing. It all depends which canon you go for. There is 4 storylines.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It's really,
I hate that. Yeah, I hate
it. To go back and do origin stories. I mean, I'm fed up of seeing Uncle Ben die in Spider-Man. I mean, come on.
Yeah, the most recent Spider-Man Homecoming that I saw in the theater, they didn't even do the origin story. They're just like, we're not even going to do the origin story. You guys already know Uncle Ben dies, he gets bitten by a spider, all that fun shit.
I mean, so
they jumped right into it.
There was a 5-year difference between Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man, and they still felt the need to reboot it. I mean, what?
I know.
Well, now it's a part of the Marvel universe. I mean, he was fighting alongside fucking Iron Man and like all the Avengers.
Yeah, I know.
And the Spider. I mean, it's interesting, but I don't like now. I know we're not talking about this, but I guess we're going to talk about it now. I don't like now that I can't keep up with all the superhero movies because they're all so fucking intertwined. If you've not seen every single fucking one of them, you don't know what's going on.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, I've never been a big superhero fan. I mean, I've always liked Superman, and I like the cheesy Tim Burton Batman because it looks comic, and I like things that look comic booky. I don't like this dark emo nonsense. And I started watching Jessica Jones, which is awesome.
I've heard good things about that.
And she was referencing things I had no idea what the hell was going on. I was saying to people, so is this actually New York or is it an alternate universe? And all these comic books attacking me going, how dare you not know? I'm sorry, I watch proper films. I watched Jessica Jones because she was fabulous, and I watched Luke Cage because damn, he's hot. Have you seen him?
But
I've heard good things about both those shows.
But I have to admit, but you're right, Velvet. I mean, it now works to a stage where if you liked one movie, they're forcing you to watch 4 others.
Yeah.
Right, so...
More than 4, because I'm like, you have to see all the fucking Thor movies, you have to see all the Captain Planet, Captain America, excuse me.
That's one
you have to see all the Iron Man movies, you have to see all this, now they're all getting so fucking intertwined.
The Defenders, I like Luke Cage and Jessica Jones, but I still had to watch Daredevil and Iron Fist, which I had no interest in whatsoever.
Oh, no, see, I can't commit to that.
No, I don't like it. I mean, it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't like the way that they're forcing you to spend money on something you don't necessarily want because you want to understand the next film.
Right.
So. Yeah, I think. I mean, it's a great money-making exercise, but I don't know if it's...
I mean, I was one of the rare people that enjoyed Green Lantern and got instantly destroyed.
Well, Green Lantern, Jesus.
But I'm glad it failed because it gave us Deadpool, which is the anti-superhero movie for any of us people who don't like superhero movies.
Yes.
Yeah, Deadpool's really fun. Oh, and I have to say, the Spider-Man Homecoming... even if you're not usually into that, it's worth it to watch that just to see Michael Keaton's performance in that. He is like the most understated, amazing villain you've ever seen. And the fucked up part is he's relatable. You can relate to him being a villain once you find out his reason for being a villain. It's
I've noticed
really well
as I get older, I do identify with villains more.
Oh,
yes.
I think we all do.
Yes, I know. Isn't all actors say that they love to get their teeth into a good villain role? You know, it's because you can have so much more fun being a villain.
You can embrace the darkness. I mean, it's something you can't do in day-to-day life. You know, you can be fully evil.
Yes. Yeah, it's there is something about being a villain.
The nicest people in the industry play the scariest villains.
Yes, it's often the case, isn't it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That is often the case. All right, well, look, okay, if we're going to sum up Planet of the Apes, where are we going to rate it?
Oh, goodness. I feel like I'm throwing out 5s like every week now. But, I think, it's such an iconic classic. It still holds up to this day. It's not only entertaining, it comments on society, religion, evolution, dominant species, being kind to humans if you're an ape, as opposed to being kind to animals if you're human. I mean, it's really an amazing film. And even from a visual standpoint, just the prosthetics and the zinger at the end with the Statue of Liberty. I'm giving this a 5 out of 5 again. So.
She's like the David Hasselhoff of the judging panel, isn't she? She'll give everybody a 5.
So what about you, Garry?
I couldn't score this as the same kind of way. I have to do it 2 separate ways. For its impact on film and the history of film, 5, definitely. It's right up there. And you can't be a movie fan if you haven't seen it. It is an important film to watch. Personally, I would give it about I'll give it a 4.
Okay.
Because, as I said, it's not necessarily my sort of favourite genre, but I give it credit for everything it achieves and does, because it is a very amazing, well-deserved film. It deserves all the praise it gets.
Right on.
Right, yeah, look, it is one of those very iconic movies which has spawned so much satire, spin-offs, reboots, you name it, that it's hard not to give it a 5 Erics in that sense. So I totally agree. But as a standalone movie, if I'm just going to rate it as a standalone movie, but then again, it's late 60s. You've got to put it into context of that.
Right, right.
So I'm probably going to give it a 4.
Right on.
Erics, I think. But as far as being an iconic piece of entertainment, it's above 5. You know, I mean, this movie is so important.
This is past Eric Roberts and on to Lance Henriksen.
Yeah. That's where we go. I mean, we just have to. Do we just have to say that this show started as the Zaius Report with Dr. Zaius? So I mean,
if it wasn't for Planet of the Apes, this show wouldn't have existed.
That's exactly right. You know, so
there you go.
In fact, our very
full circle.
We've had the very first logo of this show. Although we actually changed it because we realised that it was probably in breach of copyright, was actually a picture of Dr. Zaius. It was actually a picture of Dr. Zaius. It was actually taken on set.
Are you listening, Fox?
Don't worry, it's long been taken down now, so don't worry. So yeah, obviously a very iconic, important film. So yeah, and if you haven't seen the original, watch it. It's on iTunes. It's on Netflix. It's everywhere. It's not hard to find. But I agree with you, Velvet. Unless you're a big B movie fan, don't go and watch 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Don't watch the sequels.
No,
I mean,
but if you are a B movie fan, like you like movies about giant ants that ate New York and crabs that talk in French. Fuck, we've got to do that movie about the French talking crab.
I've never seen it.
Yeah.
I think I had that one. You have to use sugar; it rots their teeth. You get a good night's sleep.
And but if you like your B grade movies, then I would say definitely just get the whole box set and do 2, 3, 4, and 5 because they get pretty cheesy as they go along.
Yeah, and I'm not sponsored
Velvet,
to say
I am going to watch the new ones.
Okay,
new ones, definitely. I cannot wait for a trilogy pack to come out. I'm so getting that. And also, I'm not getting sponsored to say this, but if you do head out to your local mega store, especially the one that starts with W, you can actually find Planet of the Apes Legacy Collection. It's a 5-disc movie set of the entire Planet of the Apes from the 60s and 70s, and it's less than $15. So if you're a collector, it's worth picking up.
I've actually seen that online, Velvet, and it's a huge package, isn't it? It's like a mini book that comes with it and everything. It's quite a collectible
really nice.
item. Yeah.
Well, on Amazon UK, for all the UK listeners, it's $11.99 for the DVD set, which contains all 7 movies, or $28 for the Blu-ray set.
So that's that's pretty good.
It said 28.
Well, that's 28. That's 28 pounds, Velvet. That's not $28.
They said 28 discs. I think.
No!
Discs. I was 28, like, wow, that's big.
No, 28.
It's got the animated series in it that nobody remembers.
I misheard you. I was like 28 discs. I thought you were joking. Okay,
so it's Blu-ray £28.
28.
Okay. Oh no. Okay, I don't know how I got discs out of that. Weird. Okay, sorry about that.
£28. It reminds me of
but
that.
It's worth every penny. Or every pound. Every pound.
It's like that great video which does the rounds of YouTube, and I don't know if it was ever meant to be a piss take or if it really was serious. But that video blog of a girl somewhere in the United States talking about she doesn't understand why Britain weighs their money.
Yes.
Oh, in pounds. She was probably serious.
Wasn't she?
She was probably serious.
A hell of a lot.
Sorry, wasn't she what?
I said, wasn't she from Baltimore, which explains a hell of a lot. Anybody
There you
who's a
go.
Waters fan will know where I'm coming from on this.
Oh, dear. All right.
Shout out to Dubai. We miss you every day.
All right. Well, we have run way over time as usual.
Because you two won't shut up. You know,
I know.
Thank you for the subject.
I know. Oh, we're terrible. Oh, yes. One day, Velvet will do a show on time. I don't know when.
I won't be on that one.
I clear my entire day for the show.
We keep saying every week, we're saying an hour and a half. We're going to do an hour and a half. 3 hours later.
Somehow we used to. I don't know how we used to.
I don't.
we used to somehow.
We really did. We used to stick to an hour and a half. I don't know what the difference. Well, I know what the difference is. We digress.
It's because
so
now we're
much.
friends and we know each other and we talk about everything.
I know. That's the thing. I know.
If a conversation's going well and funny, you don't want to cut it off. You know, you keep
right.
But I think that is if when you take like a podcast and when okay, there are some people who strip their podcasts, which I think are horrible. I've listened to a few. They're absolutely terrible. You know, when they stripped them. But I've listened to other ones, and you're quite right, Velvet. When the show starts, it's often very, very tight and all the rest of it. And then by the time they're into like podcast 20, it's just all over the place. It's just people having fun. It always seems to happen, you know. It always seems.
Well, that's
to
the thing
happen.
as well. I mean, regular listeners like to hear the interplay because they get used. They get used to the people.
Yeah,
and they start catching on to your inside jokes, and they feel special because they're part of the inner circle of listeners that get the inside jokes. And
we've never claimed to be a serious freaking movie podcast.
Oh God, no.
Anybody listening out there who remembers me from the first time?
You broke up there, Garry. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. I said, if there's anybody out there that remembers me the first time I was on, you need to venture out more and try more podcasts.
but if you do...
And actually, the first time all of us were together was actually episode 13. I was a guest, and Garry was a regular host, and we just kind of switched positions.
you just swapped roles, I know.
You've seen Showgirls, right? I was walking down the stairs, and she came up and pushed me down.
Well, I was going to have you do my nails, but then I decided I don't like that whorish look, so,
Oh, it's amazing how it all changes, isn't it? But you can actually listen to...
13, though, what a number to go out on.
Was it 13,
totally.
Was it? Was it actually 13?
Yeah, it was.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
It was episode 13, yeah.
So you can go back and listen to...
I got a mention on this show. I'm glad to bring it.
Yes.
Yeah, and you guys actually reviewed Barbed Wire on episode 13.
In fact, what movies... Well, we did...
When did you pick that film?
Yeah.
That was The Phantom of the Paradise, Barbed Wire, and Digging the Marrow.
Oh, well, we did some good films on that podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it went downhill after I left, didn't it?
Then we reviewed Attack of the Eye Creatures, Warren's favorite film.
Velvet, I'm not
Oh, you
taking
just did the killer eye.
I'm not taking responsibility. I'll take responsibility for Turkey Shoot, but I am not taking responsibility for Attack of the Eye Creatures.
No, that one was all me. Attack of the Eye Creatures was all me.
But
What was the
joke of it.
softcore Dakota movie I made you watch? Was it Deadly Embrace?
No. Oh, we watched two. We watched The Leeches. We did The Leeches.
God.
And I think
Deadly Embrace
and
was
Deadly
the other one.
Embrace we did, yeah. Deadly Embrace. Yes.
You can tell when I'm back because suddenly David Dakota films will suddenly randomly appear out of nowhere.
Well, we had the gay eye candy movie Leeches.
Yeah.
Would you believe? Yes, Vel, it's called Leeches, but it's a gay eye candy film.
Oh my god!
It's
Ew, I can't
got-
get
got-
past the leeches. I'm like,
Got Josh Henderson in it, who is now hugely famous.
Yeah. Oh no, trust me, Vel. The Leeches just look like someone's hand in a puppet.
Well, they were.
Yeah.
oh, okay, I can handle that.
They were
Yeah.
I
always
can
meant to
handle
be
that.
hand puppets.
Well, there's because we always said after we did that we were actually going to do the two Attack of the Killer Leech movie, Attack of the Killer Leech movies, and because of course it was remade only a few years ago by an independent filmmaker, but it's I don't think we've done them yet.
Who hopefully will never be heard from again.
Oh my god, the remake is bad, isn't it? It really is bad. It's
This is
amazing.
where I'll get a nasty message because I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Oh really?
I don't know if I am, but it's a good chance.
It's but I must admit, I know. I mean, credit to them when they remade it. They did their best, but it's on such a small budget, and the camera work is not very good. You can actually, I mean, when you're shooting a movie, right? But you can they haven't actually got the mics done properly, so you can hear the wind whistling past. It's
Sort of like a
Oh my
Gonzo
God.
Xena.
yeah.
Those people who know what Gonzo porn is.
Yes,
That's roughly-
it's but we have to admit, but the original Attack of the Killer Leeches from the 1950s is a fantastic film. It's a really good film.
I probably had a lower budget than the
That's true. Probably did. Probably. Do you know? I have to
my
say.
God.
You know, I have to say in this. If I look through the back catalogue, we probably have done it. We probably actually have done Attack. Probably had Cliff on that week or something like that.
Oh, poor Cliff. I don't think he ever recovered from 12 to the Moon.
12. Oh, don't worry. He's done worse films than that. We've had Cliff on a few times.
He was
now.
the clever one. He watched the Mystery Science Theatre version while the
Yes.
rest of us watched that crappy original.
Don't worry. I put Cliff through. Was it The Sand?
The sound was
yeah.
awesome. I enjoyed the sound.
Yeah, so we put Cliff through some interesting ones that he wouldn't have normally have seen, I must admit. But
Nothing wrong with sand. It
no,
had some very nice
I like The Sand, actually. I thought it was an all right film. Bit silly, but it was
Apparently,
fun.
monster, I didn't pay attention. I was looking at other stuff.
Yes, oh, right, really, yes. Well, you'll always find another use for hot dogs after watching The Sand.
Oh.
No, it's not what you're thinking, Velvet. I've got a sneaky suspicion you're thinking of something else.
No, I saw the sand.
Oh, okay. Oh, that's all right. Oh, that's all right.
He thinks the worst of me.
Oh, no. I've said that to other people who haven't seen the movie. I'll say, you never think about hot dogs the same way again. And they immediately go down some weird path. It's like, no, I'm talking about survival gear, man. What are you talking about? Where was your mind?
I want to do a campaign here for Velvet, who has been cruelly typecast on this show. It's not fair.
Oh, dear.
No, I like the sand better than the giant claw. I hated that movie.
The giant claw.
Oh, that dumb looking marionette. Ugh.
Oh,
The
God.
stupid looking bird.
You need
That's
to
a
do
battleship.
Reptilicus.
Well, I still was it Dark Corners who actually when they did their review of the giant claw, and they actually started the movie with it flying around to the theme from Sesame Street.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
You need to do Reptilicus.
God.
Oh, there's so many we've still got to do. We're slowly working through everything. I still want to do Inseminoid.
Oh God, that just
I
sounds
wanted
disgusting.
to do Shock Troop. I wanted
No,
to do
it's-
Shock Troop. for so long.
Oh, Shock Treatment. Yes.
Oh, yeah, I've never seen that. I need to see that, actually.
Yes. Well, obviously, Shock Treatment. There's quite a few. Patrick's another one I want to do. Mm-hmm. I don't know why I've just listed all these movies.
Swayze, let's do Dirty Dancing.
Dirty Dancing.
Nobody puts Velvet in the corner.
It's like we forgot we're still recording and we're just talking. So.
I know, yeah, we just.
I know. We really should.
Well, I guess we better start saying our goodbyes.
I think we should. Yes. I think we've forgotten that the mic is still on. Okay. God almighty.
Oh, hi, Mike. I didn't know you were here.
All right. So
All
you
right.
guys can follow us on, or actually, Gary, go ahead and do your social media shout outs, and then we'll get to ours.
Okie dokie. For the Big Brother stuff, which I doubt any of you actually listen to or care, that is at Big Bro Radio. That's my friend Doc, and it does all the announcements for the show. And also, my Twitter is at GJ69. And you can find me on Facebook, and if you do, I'll get you done for stalking.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. And you can find Warren and I at Cult Movie Show on Twitter and Instagram, but we're much more active on Twitter. If you want to tweet us or private message us, or you can email us, cultmovieshow@gmail.com. So if you have a film that you'd like us to review, if you have an independent film you'd like us to review, if you have a short that you'd like us to review, or if you'd like to come on the show and talk movies with us, feel free to either tweet us, private message us, or email us, cultmovieshow@gmail.com, or find us on our social media at Cult Movie Show. Take it away, Warren.
Yes, and just a warning, whatever time we say we'll have you on, we'll just double it. So if we tell you it's half an hour, it's meant to be here for an hour. So, that's just the way it'll work. That's always the same with us. I think that's it, isn't it? That's everything.
I think that's it.
That's it. So, so thanks, Garry, for being on. That was really fun. It was great getting the old gang back together. It was really cool. It was really cool. And may I call you now all by your official Australian names? Because of course you can't have Garry and Velvet. It doesn't work. This is Australia. No, that's British. It's not Gazza. No, it's Gaz.
Gaz.
You're Gaz.
I feel like it should have an A at the end. Like Italian always has to have an A at the end.
Well, it could be. Yeah, you could use Gazza, but Gazza's maybe a bit British. But you could use Gazza or Gaz, and you're of course Vel. Velvet.
Nice.
I'd call her Velveeta because she's so sweet and delicious.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
There you go. And of course, I am Was. There you go. That's the Australian version of Warren.
Was.
So, as we said, with Garry can be Gaz or Gazza, Warren can be Wazza or Was. So, but unfortunately,
much worse. Don't worry.
But Velvet, I think you're just Vel. There's no art with Velvet. It's just Vel. So, anyway, God, we're just going back into the talking again. Oh, okay. We've got to finish the show. Okay. So, thanks for listening. We'll be back again next week. And we're going to actually go over 3 hours. How was that? So,
Woohoo! There
anyway,
we go. Now watch it be like our shortest show ever.
So anyway, thanks guys.
Come on, this is the instant death knell for your show. Just let you know.
So thanks guys. Thanks as always. We'll be back next week, and we'll leave you as always with Alana Evans. So thanks guys.
All right, take care.
No worries. See ya.